Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Oldham County Board of Adjustments. My name is Larry Otterback. It's 9 o'clock, and we are now in session. We have 5 cases before us today, and the procedures are going to be the same for all 5. Here in a minute, we're going to swear staff in. Gretchen will read the the docket. Staff's going to give the staff report. There'll be a round of questioning by board members to staff. When we're done with that, staff's going to take a seat, and I'm going to call you, the applicant, forward. Come to the podium, speak into the mic. Things are being recorded, so just make sure you're talking up here when you're talking. When you get up here, raise your right hand, get sworn in, state your name and address, and justify your project. You'll have 20 minutes to do so. Clock is on the wall. When you're done with that, there'll be a round of questioning by board to you, the applicant. And when we're done with that, you may take a seat. I'm going to call forward anybody that wishes to speak in favor of the application, and then those opposed. Procedures will be the same. You're going to come forward, raise your right hand, be sworn in, state your name and address, tell us why you're in favor, tell us why you're opposed. There'll be a round of questioning by board to that audience. And when we're done with that, you may take a seat. If there is anybody opposed, I'll call the applicant forward for rebuttal. You'll have 5 minutes for a time of rebuttal, and then opposition will have the same, 5 minutes per time of rebuttal of that, and then final statements, starting with the applicant, and then the opposition. You'll have 5 minutes for that. Again, clock is on the wall. When we're done with that, I'm going to close the floor for public hearing, open it up for general discussion among board members, and call for an up and down vote. Okay? Board members, please make sure your mics are on. Phones are off, and if you need to take a call, just please excuse yourself from the courtroom. Make sure it's off when you come back in. And with that, if we could swear staff in.
Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you.
The second item, OC 23010. The application has been filed for the removal of a previously issued conditional use permit at property located at 4610 North Camden Lane, Crestwood, has been tabled until April. Okay. And Gretchen, if you could read the first one, please.
Docket OC 23-008, an application has been filed by High Point Training LLC for a conditional use permit for a recreational campground, 6 campsites, on 151.16 acres located at 4600 Stone River Drive, LaGrange.
Thank you. Brian.
Brian Fogel, Assistant Director. The application before the board this morning is for a conditional use for what the zoning ordinance would define as a recreational camp. The applicants are proposing to construct 6 cabins on their property, 5 of which are 1-bedroom cabins, and 1 of which is a 2-bedroom cabin. Proper notification of today's meeting was given with it being posted on our website. Adjoining property owners were notified, and then the public notice appeared in the Oldham Mirror newspaper. Just to orient the board on the location, the subject property is right here. The proposed cabins are approximately here, and we'll present the applicant's plot plan showing a more specific location. This is Bluegrass Parkway right here, Tobacco Road right here, and then Highway 42, which is off of the aerial, is going to be up at the top of the picture, and Stone River Drive is right here. This property has a big history in terms of any actions that either the Planning Commission or the board have taken. Because it was basically the center of the L'Esprit development in the early 1980s. So in 1983 of March, the zoning was changed not only on this property, but all of the property that was part of the L'Esprit development. In August of '83, a record plat was recorded, and this property at that time was about 690 acres and was identified as Lot 100 of the L'Esprit development. In June of '98, a proposal was made and approved to subdivide this property. And then in September of '98, a record plat was recorded, and that's where this particular lot was created. The property is highlighted in red here. Here's the entrance off of Stone River Drive, the horse track here, and then all the associated barns. And then again, the proposal for the cabins is approximately in this area along the lake. The zoning in the area is basically agricultural and conservation. And here's the applicant's plot plan showing where they're proposing to locate the cabins, again adjacent to the lake in a wooded area. And this is the applicant's drawings of what the cabins would look like on the outside. And then the floor plan. So in summary, they're requesting the board's approval for the conditional use to establish the what we would call a recreational camp under the zoning ordinance, because that's the definition or the term that most closely fits what they're requesting. We did receive two items of correspondence. Tuesday, we received an email with someone in opposition to the application expressing concerns. And then yesterday we had hand-delivered a letter from the L'Esprit's Homeowners Association Architectural Committee voicing support for the application.
Do you have those with you?
We do.
Yeah, if you can put them up.
Christy, thank you.
Tell you what, Brian, let's hold off until I call for those in opposition and support, and then we'll put them up at that time. All right, thanks. Any questions for Brian? Okay. All right, thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for your time. Kyle Galloway, counsel for High Point Training Center. You need to swear me in?
Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I want to make sure everybody can hear me all right. And I'll have to, I'm sorry, can you hear me?
I didn't catch your name.
I'm sorry, Kyle Galloway,
Well,
counsel for the applicant.
all right, thank you.
To the extent I don't use all my time, Don Schneider is here as the owner of the LLC, and he would like to speak as well. So that'd be great. I've got this slide, this PowerPoint up here. This is a conditional use permit as discussed by the staff. It does say campground in the code as the most applicable use, but it's not a campground. It's a proposed training center and farm rental accommodations. The idea here is to create some very nice cabins that allow some of the trainers who use the facility to have overnight stays, and to also allow some guests to stay on a temporary rental basis. Just to go over what the High Point Farm and Training Center is, it's in the heart of L'Esprit. Here's an aerial shot of the entire facility. It's a very busy, active training facility with tracks, barns, farms, on staff that live on site, including I think school buses even come to the site to take children to school. So it's a very busy area, and you can see how vast the expanse of the area is, and how sort of buffered it is from any other uses or neighbors. It's got, as I mentioned, great training facilities. It's got a 6 furlong track. It's got starting gates, a clocker stand, polytrack, hot walkers, and up to 30 paddocks for multiple exercise options. So it's a very busy training center. The idea is to construct these 6 cabins for rental and ownership use. So 5-bedroom, 1-bath cabins and 1 2-bedroom cabin of 560 square feet. They'll all be single story, complete with a front porch, seamless metal roof. They will be permanent. They're not going to be trailers, not mobile homes. They're on a raised foundation. They will not be in view. I know there's these view corridors that are created and setbacks that are not going to be within any of those. And they'll be constructed in accordance with all property conditions and restrictions, which you guys don't address here specifically, but just so you know that's in compliance. This is the construction company is called Deer Run Cabins. It's a second-generation Amish cabin company. It complies with all industrial building systems, structural industrial building systems, like electrical code, Seal of Kentucky, IRC, all of these things. So they're not just shacks, and it's not really, that's why I raised the point of a campground, because it's not really a campground. These are actually real buildings, that are being put up there. We feel are nice and consistent with the character of a top-end training facility and farm. We feel like this is consistent with the Oldham County Comprehensive Plan. It's going to be used by the farming community, by the owners, the trainers for horse, and for third-party visitors as well, when available for an experience to come out and experience Oldham County and see what horses and the horse farm and the training facilities like. The traffic impact, we believe, will be incredibly negligible relative to the current activity on the farm. There are absolutely sufficient existing facilities on the site, including electrical and plumbing. There's going to be 2 new septic tanks installed. That's been discussed with the HOA, and they've approved that. And I'll get to that a little bit later. The cabin location is 1,500 feet from Bluegrass Parkway, and there's plenty of access, and grade is similar. We estimate renting about 100 to 150 days out of the year to people who would use it, either trainers or vacationing singles or couples. Parking would be adjacent to each cabin. The maximum estimated vehicle count would be 1,800 trips a year. We think that'll be far less, but that's very, again, minor compared to the traffic footprint of the farm. We discussed occupancy. That's just in for the record. And I also have submitted this to the case manager to be entered into the record. I sent him a PDF this morning. The HOA has approved the application, and while these conditions aren't, part of the conditional use permit before you, I wanted to also reference and incorporate this so you guys are informed as to the additional restrictions, which ownership is quite amenable to, as they feel like this is a high value facility that's, wants to be first in class nationally. So the cabins are remote and wooded area near the lakes. Again, the overall tract is 150 acres. The approval is for only 6 cabins by the HOA. We won't, and the applicant agrees not to ask for more. All the setbacks and adjacent property lines, the right-of-ways and easements are in excess of 1,000 feet. The location of the cabins is confined to a small area within the tract. And I'm going to show you some pictures later so you can see some insides of the cabins as well as the location. The use is geared, as I mentioned before, to the horse trainers, their clients, as well as thoroughbred racing enthusiasts. The purpose is to support and bolster ongoing pre-existing equine operations on the property. As I mentioned, they'll share their septic systems, and those will obviously be in compliance with all health regulations and to minimize impact and environmental impact. We will take extra care to protect all nearby ponds and all trees during the phases of construction and installation of the use of the cabins. Also, we've agreed that no cabin guests will be allowed on the L'Esprit community riding trails in accordance with the applicable deed restrictions. This is an overall site plan that was submitted that was also in the staff report for your reference. This is an aerial view with a red box, which hopefully you guys can see, which shows the general location where the cabins will be put near the lakes or the little ponds that are out there. Can you guys, are you able to see that?
Yeah.
Great. Again, here are some elevations, which were also included in the staff report. I'm going to move through those and show some pictures of the general location of where the cabins will be. This opens it up because it's a wintertime picture, right? So you don't have the foliage that would further shield them, so please take that into account. But even with that, you can see how isolated these are from adjoining properties. That building in the background is part of the farm, the current owner's property. So you can see, kind of the setting and the general idea. And then here are some pictures of what we call these cabins in a finished model state. You can see that they're wood construction, they're nicely done. I think they're constructed in Kentucky, the owner can confirm that. And have a nice front porch, and we think it would be a really nice amenity to add into this facility. Again, this is a sample of the front porch of the cabin. So the construction is consistent with the farm. The location is very isolated. It will enhance equine operations, and we believe it will improve the value to the whole of Oldham County as far as marketing and focusing on the horse industry and the value that brings. Don, did you want to have any questions? Or do you guys have any questions for me? And then I can open it up to Don.
Not yet. Let's go ahead and bring Don up. And if we can get you sworn in and state your name and address.
Don Schneider, 609 West Main Street, Louisville, Kentucky, 40202.
Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you very much for taking the time today. We bought this farm 14 months ago with the intention, as we do with all of our investments, and we're a very small boutique organization. I'm a fourth generation real estate person, learning from my grandfathers in Chicago and Southern California, and we've done some fabulous stuff in downtown Louisville with historical buildings and restoring them to make them very, very special in what they are. And I've just been super blessed with having a diamond in the rough, which High Point Farm was. And you saw the history of it being split up. It was a magnificent facility, but it was falling on hard times. And in fact, there is not even a residence within the 20 plus structures on the farm for anybody to stay. I mean, we were preparing to come over here from Louisville this morning and saw the beautiful sunrise. And I said to Randy, my significant other, I said, wouldn't that be beautiful to watch that sunrise, at High Point? But we don't even have a place to stay. The former owner that we bought it from stayed in his motorhome. So these cabins are going to have a multiple, use. And we are completely committed to making and bettering the community, just like we've done downtown Louisville, and just like what we hope that we can always say about anything that we are involved with. Like I said, there's 20 plus structures on this property. And I mean, quite frankly, when we entered into this venture, it was like fighting an octopus on his own terms underwater. Now, I think we're going to make it calamari, but my sense of humor, because we really made a lot of strides. We just brought in 80 truckloads of poly from Arlington Raceway in Chicago to better the uphill track for the horses. We have been working tirelessly on the 6 furlong track to make it safe and to make it competitive for our 35 trainers and 200 and some odd horses that are out there. And it's really been an adventure. I don't own a horse, which I am glad to say, but we want to provide the absolute best facilities of our users and partners, and that includes Oldham County. We've partnered with the tourism board and had tours out there with the tourism board, and we've got some more lined up coming down for Derby Week and so forth. And people just melt. I don't know if any of you have been on the farm in the past or even recently, but it's just been all hands on deck with carpenters and painters and to really make that place shine. I mean, unfortunately, before we purchased it, we were 1 week under contract, and Ken Haggard, the owner, passed away suddenly. He was elderly, and that worked out okay. But he was passionate about it, and his wife was passionate about it, who'd passed away as well. But it just had fallen into a state of disrepair, and we looked at it and we said, we can make this great again. We can make this really, really special. And the cabins are really just an augment of that. I mean, I honestly, naively didn't think this was that big of a deal because it just seemed such a natural fit. But I do respect the community and their concerns because they don't know us and they don't know our intentions. But I can look at you and I can look at any of them and want to spend some more time gathering and meeting them and having them on the farm once we can come up for air, because it's been 14 months of just grinding and we're turning corners and it's getting really, really nice. I mean, after all the fence boards and all the just on and on and on, the bunkhouses and bringing that up, we've partnered with the Chancellery from Churchill to help firm up our foundation and the people that actually live on the farm and call that their home, which is very important to us. And so with that, I really appreciate your consideration. If you have any questions, I'm here.
Okay. Questions?
Don, as a real estate person, I think you can appreciate what this is going to do for the facility and for the farm. One of my disappointments in looking at the pictures actually was the finishes in the bathrooms and the kitchens. I mean, it's prefab kind of sinks and countertops. I mean, I would expect for people that are spending $1 million for a racehorse and training them, they'd want granite countertops and a little bit of upgraded finishes versus, somebody that's, not really a true equine enthusiast. So I was just wondering kind of what drove you to maybe downgrade versus upgrade the quality and the finishes.
Well, certainly part of it, that's a great question, and certainly part of it is budget considerations. I mean, these are, we researched several different ways, from custom building these cabins to building them off-site and bringing them on. I mean, nowadays we have been to the facility at Deer Run Cabins in Campbellsville, and it's truly remarkable how they do these. The finishes are still up for, we haven't solidified anything as far as the actual finishes of them. We've really been focused on kind of the size and the accommodations as far as the layout and so forth. They had a bunch of different floor plans and so forth, but I appreciate the input, and something we'll take into account as we firm up the designs.
Thank you.
The pictures that we're seeing and that you showed of the cabins, those aren't on your property. Are those examples? Pictures that we're seeing and that you showed of the cabins, those aren't on your property. Are those examples of what the builder?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So nothing's already been built yet, or and I would like to see your presentation. You went through it very quickly. I know we're up against time, but there are some points that you said that I'd like to go back and review. It's my understanding that this is not a campground, that this is for training, facilitating the training and trainers and family. We're not bringing 4-H camp and Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts, and I mean it's strictly for those working the farm.
Yeah, and the in the equine overall, I want to say no for Boy Scouts and no for firearms. That's come up in our conversations with some of our neighbors and so forth. And God no, I mean, even though I hear pop 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 when I'm out on the farm on the weekends from adjoining wherever from a distance, which is unfortunate for the horses. But no, this is for more of an upscale experience, and as we go forward with so many ideas happen when people come on the farm, and we invite those ideas, but we have to filter through those. And the equine interest, the equestrian interest, is so heightened right now because these animals are truly beautiful and the facility is truly beautiful, and there's so much to grow and learn and just absorb that experience. I mean, when we have friends come in from out of town that don't have a place to stay and they just melt. I mean, we had it's truly remarkable. It moves people. It shifts you, and you see these very highly powerful animals go by you with their riders and train breezing around the track and going through the uphill. It's truly remarkable. And then even just the farm hands that are cleaning them and caring for them. And our whole objective is absolutely 100% to take care and foster that success and make this special like it once was. And I think it can be, and even better. But this will just augment that.
You mentioned people, staying in there who are racing enthusiasts. Is there going to be any type of advertising for that? Like, are you going to put it on like an Airbnb or any type of short-term stay type of thing? Or is this going to be just people who are organically coming in through the industry that you know, or who are somehow?
We'll probably market in a limited amount to in third-party sites, yeah, when it's available, yeah. However, I will add this. We do have some other rentals in downtown Louisville, and we are very, very particular. And we've been doing this for quite a while on a limited basis as well, because we have some corporate units and we have stuff that is it's a parallel, but it's very different in the sense that it's the business and it's downtown Louisville, right in the heart. And we are very careful to vet who we want to be partners with and staying on our properties. We expect people to appreciate things as if it's theirs, and that they, that's why the campground thing is like scratching, putting your nails on a chalkboard to me, because it's just couldn't. I mean, that's the only thing we can attach it to. But at the same time, this is a more high-end experience, and people are going to be expected to respect the property, respect the surroundings. We've got security. They're not going to touch the trail paths. They're not going to be near the horses. And we've had some of our trainers come to us and say, well, how do you just, and explaining it to like we were explaining it to you. This is something that is augmenting the success of the farm. It's not going to be a detraction whatsoever. It couldn't be. I would never even talk about it, and I wouldn't be up here if I didn't mean that. Thank you.
That I'm clear, and I'm sure that you've explained it, but I'm just trying to make sure that I understand this. You're adding these cabins to be rented out, right, basically?
Part. They will be available in part, yes.
The other part of the in part.
It'll give us accommodations. It'll give friends and family and guests accommodations that are personal relationship. It'll give the trainers. People come back from Turfway, and I can give you one example of one of our trainers. He comes back from Turfway at a late race. He gets done by 10. He's got to wind his horse down for an hour and wash it down. Then he's got to travel back for an hour. He gets in at midnight. He's got to put the horse away in the stall, and then he's got to drive down to where he lives by Churchill Downs, which is 45 minutes. He doesn't get home till 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, and I don't think it's probably a very good idea for a trainer to be driving in the early hours of the morning when he can have an accommodation here. We do have a 35-room bunkhouse. It's filled with groomsmen and staff that work for the trainers. So I think it's a positive from that standpoint. And this happens on an ongoing basis, especially now. These aren't going to be built during this racing season, but I mean, it's Derby time, and the interest in the activity in our farm and others is picking up dramatically in the last week or two. Thank you.
Kyle, if I could, thank you, Don. If I can get you to
Certainly.
go back to, first of all, I think it was maybe the very first shot was a shot of the actual farm and all the different buildings.
Here we go.
Right, that one right there. So is it right there at the pond is where the 6 cabins are going to go? I don't think so, actually. I think the 6
You
cabins
can't see it from
are off,
this aerial. I just wanted to show the density of the buildings.
Okay.
Yeah. I can, but I don't think it's on the map.
Yeah.
Which is the John? Down this way, right?
Yeah, I think I've got it. Actually, if you,
Yeah.
there's another picture that shows where that larger barn is and that pond, and you're able to see where we're talking about, but it's not relevant, so don't worry about it. All right,
We've got an aerial if you want, or are you good?
I'm fine right where it is. But Brian, I am going to call you back up here shortly, but not right now. All right, I'm talking more about the density and what more, in placing these 6 barns, what more of a demand will be on the surrounding land. You had mentioned, first of all, there are 2-person cabins. You mentioned the vehicle count per year of 1,800. So I'm looking for the density, and we just ran through the numbers really quick.
Apologize for that.
Fine. I know we hit a clock on us.
I think there's a per acre density that we agreed to, the HOA, which is a density of no more than 1 cabin per 25 acres. So that's relatively minor density, I would argue. In addition to, I think, Don, how many buildings are on the site? There's already 20 other buildings on the site, on the farm as well, and it's 150 acres.
All right. Go up a couple of slides.
Hold on, it's like giving me a hard time.
All right. Yeah, keep going up. We'll just start. All right, stop right there. All right, go down one. All right, stop right up. No, go down one more. Right there, hang on for a second. All right, go down one more. 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 Hang on right there. Okay. So I guess what I'm pointing out there, and maybe this is just a call out to the other board members, is the point of 100 to 150 days out of the year, 1 or 2 vehicles for 2 to 3 night stays, estimated count 1,800 trips. So I'm talking about the demand that these 6 cabins will place on the area. Go down one more. 2-person cabins. Okay. All right. And then we get down to the HOA stuff. Okay. All right. Thank you, Kyle.
Absolutely. We do feel the impact will be negligible, but hopefully you agree. Any other questions? I do get a wrap up, but I do ask that you approve based on the evidence today. So thank you.
Thank you. Brian, I can get you to come up. This is zoned CO1 and Agriculture 1.
Correct.
I think on what is the regulation on ag use? Can't you have farm hands, a number of farm hands working a farm? Actually, I don't think it's limited. Is it the number of buildings, the number of people working the farm, the number of people staying on the farm?
It's correct. There's provisions in the zoning ordinance that recognizes you could have a large farm where you have multiple people working and that you're also providing housing for them. Because this is not what the request is today, where it's for farm hands, that's where we express to the applicant they need to come to the board to get a conditional use. If they had proposed to build cabins for farm hands, that basically would have been a regular building permit process versus having to come before the board.
That's allowed under AG1?
That's correct.
Campground, did they take exception to the campground? I think I take exception to the campground. Is there nothing closer than a campground?
There's not.
Is this essentially
only one building, it might be an ADU, but since there are 6, when we look in the regulations, and Brian explained this already, that the recreational camp is the only thing that it would fit in, and it requires a conditional use permit.
how does this fall within the short-term rental, the STR kind of regulations? Is there any relationship?
And that's not the intent of these. It's, as explained by the applicant, it's for people who are there either with horses, trainers, or family members, and they aren't necessarily renting it. Recreational camps, if you think about it, it kind of fits under that, either as a cabin or even, this is not RVs, but an RV spot would have a rental attached to it. So,
But what about just a farm? Working farm, what we just got done saying, they can have as many farm hands as they want, as many buildings as they want. And
a little bit different than that because they're offering it for trainers to stay and they're not necessarily farm workers. And really, the regulation is written towards family members of the farm, not always, although in L'Esprit there are, and there are other places where there are facilities for the farm workers. Skylight, as an example, has one. But the regulation is really written towards family members.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's a little different. That's why we thought we'd come here.
All right, very good. Thanks, Jim. Thanks, Brian. All right, board members, any other questions for the applicants? Kyle or Don? Okay, Brian, you had a letter or an email for approval. We'll start with that one. And if you want to put it up.
Thank you, Chris. This is the letter from the L'Esprit Property Owners Association, their Architectural Review Committee, expressing their view and opinion about the application.
Board, you good? All right, thank you. And then I'll call you back up for the opposition in a minute. By show of hands, can I see anybody here wishing to speak in favor? Okay, if you'd like to come forward. What's part of the record? And Brian will need that letter as part of the record, which I'm sure you have, but they need to get you sworn in.
Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yeah, yes. Trish Henry on 1309 Park Shore Road, LaGrange, Kentucky.
Okay.
So I'm the current chair of the Architectural Control Committee for L'Esprit. Initially, when we first found out about this application, there was a lot of concern among the community, myself included, a lot of worry about, for lack of a better term, transient lodgers coming through, also any impact it might have on the other properties around, not knowing exactly where it was located, not knowing exactly what it was, because hearing campground, a lot of alarm bells went off, quite honestly, myself included, worrying about, what we were dealing with. Is this going to be a RV park? Is it going to be something that they're going to hold big music concert venues and have people staying overnight, camping out? So the campground, is problematic, I think, as a term. And I'm not sure, Jim explained, but I'm not clear on why it doesn't fall under short-term rental properties, because I believe part of that usage is going to be short-term rental property, renters coming in as tourists for, bourbon and horses, the Bourbon Trail, and so on. So that still, I'm sure, remains a concern amongst different property owners in the community. The other concern was the quality of the cabins. We hear modular and, we think, oh no. I'm glad to hear that maybe the finishes can be changed and upgraded. That might have been just the base that, the Deer Run Cabins provides. So that remains a question. We were split on our vote as far as approving, and everyone, should feel free to always vote their conscience. As far as our rules and regulations, our covenants and restrictions, modular units are strictly prohibited in the visual zone. The visual zone is actually not where you can see. It's only 300 feet for a property of this size. The president of the association, myself, and then the board rep to our architectural control committee contacted Don and Randy and went out to see the site and to see the location of it specifically. Because honestly, I probably wouldn't want 6 cabins within my view of my property. We all care about the aesthetics. That's why we have an architectural control committee. We care about standards. We want to enhance our property values and enhance our property aesthetics rather than detract. When we all arrived, I think we were all quite concerned and negative towards the proposal. We left, I think each one of us, having spoken afterwards, left with the feeling that it would be unreasonable to deny it. And why, for me, most importantly, is its impact on surrounding property owners. You can't see the cabins where they're located. They are far off of any property line, at least any adjacent property owners. They own the tract right next to it as well, which I think is like 85 acres or something, but the total is 235 acres. So it's a unique situation where you could have 6 cabins located where they have very little negative impact on the neighbors. Noise, smoke from a fire, what have you. I was also encouraged by the list of policies, the guest policies that they provided us, because other concerns were, we don't want people coming into the community and using our bridle paths. Our bridle paths are sacred, and we already have an issue with non-property owners coming in and using them. So that was another thing that we raised with Randy and Don, and they, every request, every condition for approval that we put forward, they agreed to willingly. So for me, that made me feel a whole lot better, because we got a situation where I feel like there will be compliance. And I feel like the community will be largely protected, and probably as important as any other factor is that if these cabins will bolster and support an already existing equine operation and preserve the land and green space that goes with that, that's important to me. And I think it's probably important to a number of people in L'Esprit. We did not take this approval lightly. And, we had to think long and hard. I don't know if you all put conditions on approval, but I felt that was the best way to protect our community and protect its integrity, but yet not overreach as far as control goes for a farm of this kind. So I know that agritourism, is on the rise, and there are dairy farms that are able to exist because they have turned to tourism, agritourism. But I do want to be clear that there are still concerns amongst the community as far as the quality of the cabins, any impact, and whether the guest policies will be adequately enforced. So with that, I'll leave you. I mean, I've spoken against it and I've spoken for it, because that's how we've been. We've been kind of split, right? But we have approved it with conditions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Questions for Tricia? All right, thank you. Show of hands. Anybody here wishing to speak in opposition of the application? Okay, if I can get you to stand up, we're going to swear everybody in at the same time.
Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Okay, there's 6 people that want to speak in opposition. Collectively, we have given the those in approval or in support of the application 10 minutes. Collectively, we will give you 10 minutes as well. So I don't know if we want to, all 6 speak, or if you want to figure out who can be a spokesperson. But collectively, you'll have 10 minutes. Who would like to come first? Okay. And if you could just, between each one, stop the clock between each one. And if I get your name and address, please.
Is Robin Vessels. I live at 1320 Bluegrass Parkway. And before I get started, I was needing some clarification from the...
Hang on, Robin. Or just swore them all collectively? Jay, can you come out, please? There you go. Well, the problem with that is the people can't see you. Well, it had been working. Ready? All right, Robin, go ahead.
Needing some clarification from the applicant as to the cabins, if they are delivered pre-built or if they are built on site.
Just, Robin, if you could address the board here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Could you ask the client?
He has an opportunity after this for rebuttals and final statements.
Thank you, thank you. Okay, I will start with this. The zoning ordinance under general provisions says, D, to review, hear, and approve or deny all applications for conditional use permits based on the provisions of this ordinance and Kentucky revised statutes. Kentucky revised statutes state the board shall have the power to hear and decide applications for conditional use permits to allow the proper integration into the community of uses which are specifically named. These are the key terms, specifically named in the zoning regulations, which may be suitable only in specific locations in the zone only if certain conditions are met. And again, the key words are specifically named. The applicant is High Point Training, a for-profit corporation according to the documents filed with the Secretary of the State. The property is zoned agricultural and conservation residential. As part of this application, he has submitted documentation that the proposed revenue from the cabin rentals will be $270,000 per year. Therefore, this is a commercial use. In reading your zoning ordinance, the only commercial uses that could be granted by the conditional use permit for the zoning are daycare facilities for 4 or more children, veterinary hospitals and kennels in the AG1 zoning. For the CO1 zoning, the only commercial use that could be granted by a conditional use permit are veterinary hospitals and kennels. Those are the words of your zoning ordinance. The for-profit commercial use of 6 cabins is not permitted, even through a conditional use permit. And I hearken back to the words of Chapter 100. The board shall have the power to hear and decide applications which are specifically named in the zoning regulations. The application contains some conflicting information regarding the cabins for rental and ownership use. Under construction, the applicant has written the cabins are a certified modular design by Deer Run Cabins, pre-built at their facility and delivered on site. These are modular homes, which are manufactured homes, the definitions of which can be found in the zoning ordinance. Additionally, Kentucky Revised Statutes, Chapter 186, Chapter 640, subsection 3, defines a manufactured home as a structure that has 320 or more square feet when erected on site. All of these cabins exceed 320 square feet. Manufactured homes are not a use that can be granted by conditional use permit in an agricultural residential district. He has requested ownership usage of a cabin. There is not a primary residence on this property. Apparently, the applicant is wanting to use a cabin in lieu of his having to build a home. In the zoning, the following words appear under uses that can be granted under recreation. And those words are recreational vehicle, parks, and campgrounds. Those are the key words, recreational vehicle parks and campgrounds. Definitions for terms used in the zoning ordinance can be found in Division 420. However, there is no definition for recreational vehicle parks and campgrounds. Division 420 says, in the event that a definition is not listed in this section or document, staff shall refer to a planner's dictionary published by the American Planning Association. Recreational vehicle parks and recreational vehicle campgrounds are definitions that are defined in that dictionary. And I think previous testimony actually said that they couldn't find the proper definition where to define what the client was asking for. And again, I hearken back to state law. If it's not specifically named as a conditional use permit, you cannot grant a conditional use permit. Okay. I now wish to read the definition of manufactured home park, an area developed for rental or lease of space for modular manufactured homes with accommodations for 6 or more manufactured homes. So what the applicant is proposing is a manufactured home park according to the definitions of your zoning ordinance. Again, these are definitions in the zoning ordinance and from state law. This is what defines what a manufactured home is. I am opposed to this conditional use permit for the following reasons. Number one, state law is very specific in that it states that the board can only hear and decide applications for conditional use permits to allow the proper integration into the community of uses which are specifically named in the zoning regulations. Manufactured homes are not listed in the zoning ordinance for uses that the board may grant a conditional use permit for in an agricultural conservation district. The for-profit renting of the cabins is a commercial use, which is not listed as a commercial use that this board may grant at an agricultural conservation district. Recreation camp is not an allowable conditional use in an agricultural conservation district. A manufactured home park is not a conditional use that you can grant in this zoning district. I respectfully request that you deny this conditional use permit request because 1, the character and objectives are not appropriate. 2, the community or neighborhood does not need the proposed use. 3, the proposed use is not compatible. And number 4, to grant a conditional use permit would be in violation of state law. Thank you very much.
Okay, before we send her back and bring the next forward, does anybody have any questions for Robin? All right, who would like to speak next? If you can state your name and address, please.
Philip Gambrell, 153 Kelly Drive, Pendleton, Kentucky. I am a member of the Spree community.
Okay.
I'd just like to read a few definitions for you from the Oldham County zoning ordinance. Camp or campgrounds, tracts of land of a design or character suitable for used seasonal, recreational, and other similar living purposes. The tracts may have located on them a structure or a seasonal, temporary, or movable nature, such as a cabin, hunting shelter, or tent. Any permanent structure, such as a cabin, must comply with the appropriate requirements for dwellings in that district, including requirements from the health officer. These do not reach the requirements for housing in that district. The next definition, which you alluded to, sir, short-term rental property. If we all noticed that they did say that these are going to be rented buildings, and to your question, they are going to be advertised. So, short-term rental property, a residential dwelling unit that is used and or advertised for rent for transient occupancy or guests. Dwelling units rented to the same occupant for more than 30 continuous days, bed and breakfast establishments, boarding houses, hotels, motels shall not be considered short-term rentals. Okay? Then the final thing, so that in case I run out of time here, this is the chart in the zoning code for conditional use, allowed conditional uses in an agricultural zone. RV parks and recreational vehicle parks and campgrounds is a conditional use, but this is not a campground. And multifamily or rental housing is not allowed in AG1 zoning. Thank you.
Okay, show of hands, who else would like to speak? If I can get a show of hands, obviously you, sir. So just two more? Is that the only, anybody else? The gentleman here and the lady in the back there? Okay, we have a little bit over a minute. Board, we have an opportunity to take a motion to extend that if we wish. But right now we have a little bit over a minute. Sir, if you'd like to go ahead. And if I can.
Robert Vessels, I live at 1320 Bluegrass Parkway in LaGrange. I'm opposed to this application from the point of view of a property owner in L'Esprit with 20 acres of vacant land next to my property. And there are a number of L'Esprit residents with the vacant land next to theirs also. What happens if this conditional use permit is allowed and other owners of vacant land, all of which at this time are non-residents of Oldham County, apply for a similar conditional use permit? Will they be permitted also if the board grants this one? Another property in the L'Esprit development has recently changed ownership and has over 200 acres with no residents, only a barn on the property. And some speculation is the new owner wants to construct weekend getaway cabins and perhaps even allow hunting on the property. The owner of this property, like the owner of High Point Training LLC, lives in Jefferson County and most likely has no intention of building his primary residence on the property. I would like to address briefly the elements of the suggested motion to approve in the Board of Adjustments literature. One, is it essential or desirable to the community?
If I can get you to stop. Board, the time is at 0. Do we want to extend opposition?
Motion that we extend.
By how long?
Up to another 5 minutes.
You want 5 minutes?
Give everybody time.
Motion for 5. Do I have a second? Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? If you can put 5 more minutes back up on the clock, please. Sorry, Robert, hang on one second. I know this breaks the flow, but hang on.
Few words I use with my computer, if you would like.
Do what? All right, Robert, go ahead.
I would like to briefly address the elements of suggested motion to approve. Number one, is it essential and desirable to the community? Number two, does granting the conditional use permit allow for proper integration into the community? Number three, are the character and objectives of the use and potential impacts on the community appropriate? Number four, does the community have a need for the use and are there potential benefits? Number five, is it compatible with surrounding land use and general character of the area? Personally, my answer to all of these is no. And the element of the suggestion motion to deny the proposed use is certainly not essential to the community, and whether it is desirable to the community, I can only speak from my personal perspective that it is not. If you choose to grant this permit, and I believe I did send a list of items in email, but we have a unique amenity or a unique thing in L'Esprit where there is a bridle path, 20 miles of bridle path. And we have a difficult time making sure that only the people that are supposed to use it are using it. And I would like put into the conditions in this, if you choose to approve this, that these occupants of these cabins may not in any way, shape, or form walk, hike, or ride a horse, either their own or anybody else's, on the bridle path, because it puts the L'Esprit property owners in financial jeopardy, quite honestly. But anyway, the other thing is that there be quiet time from 11 p.m. to 6 a.m., that no outdoor fires are permitted other than in containers designed for them, like charcoal grills, and no discharging of firearms at any time. I thank you very much for your time.
Okay, thank you, Robert. You can pause the clock. And ma'am, if you'd like to come forward. And if you can state your name and address, please.
Hirsch, H-E-R-S-H.
No, I'm sorry, what was the first name? Monique? Okay. All right.
Sorry. Oh, I'm sorry, 46.
You can pull it down. There we go.
Sorry, I'm more comfortable in a horse barn than I am in court. So I have a question, more than statements, about these so-called cabins. Are they going to be set on cement foundations? And what entrance, other than Stone River Drive, which is the main entrance for all traffic going in and out of High Point Training Center, will they be using? There was a suggestion of a gravel drive, which I don't know. I'd just like, to know how they are going to get these people in and out. And Mr. Don Schneider mentioned rapidly in his description of High Point and these cabins that first he said, be for trainers and their families and so on and so forth. I understand that. But then also added couples and newlyweds and so on. And so I'm thinking, okay, non-horse people. High Point is an established thoroughbred training center. You have to be very careful around the horses. There are horse barns that, hopefully he talks about security. I'd like to know what level of security. I always speak up for the horses. You have 250 stalls in High Point Training Center when it's full to capacity. That's a lot of horses that we have to think about. Barn fires are a main concern of any horse owner in any horse establishment or farm. We had a house fire, our own house fire in 2010. In February of 2010, the house burned to the ground because the fire of, I forget what they call them, but across the road was frozen. They had to set up a pool outside of the house and bring water in from other parts where they could find a hydrant that was not frozen. We have to think of all of these concerns when you think of all these horses and their lives. Very important to me. And I will always speak up for a horse. I've seen the trailers I actually went to the website for this outfit in Campbell's, not Campbellsburg, Campbellsville, not to, offend them or anything, but they are cheap looking. That long porch, they look like single wide trailers. And are they gonna be hauled in with a big rig? or, they're not going to be building them right there. So, but mainly I want to know.
Seconds.
Sorry.
30 seconds.
Okay. Well, anyhow, those are really my main concerns. And as far as the family members and trainers, I'm sure they can afford a room at the local Holiday Inn in LaGrange. It's only 4 miles away from the farm. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, time for a rebuttal. If you'd like to come forward, you've heard you heard some questions that were posed to you. I don't know if you want to address those, and you also heard some concerns. But this is time for a rebuttal. You'll have 5 minutes.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll touch on a few matters briefly, and then Don may speak on try to answer a few of the general questions. In general, and I don't know, there were some questions about the type of application, but the farm in it itself is a commercial operation. That it sells horse stalls. It operates and functions as a commercial operation. And we believe this conditional use, which you mentioned earlier, Mr. Chairman, if we didn't apply for this, we could build these cabins. We could just put them up and use them for farmhands. The issue is that we're coming forward and saying, well, we want to use them for third parties who aren't farmhands or aren't owners, and to use that in a way that would enhance the. Do you want to wait? Would use that in a way that would enhance both the viability of the farm, enhance the equine tourism, in this area to bring, to preserve this green space and this working farm that's a thoroughbred facility, and so I think that's the main idea. Don, did you want to talk about some of the questions that were posed about the foundation? You do have to come up. I think they are on a foundation. You can confirm that.
Yeah, they're partially built off site in almost totality, but they are on block foundations with wood girders, and the HVAC systems need to be installed on site. We did a significant amount of research, and I'm kind of saddened a little bit by the comments and the quality of them, because we're very confident that the quality, these are homes. It's not a trailer park. Those trailer parks, one of my grandfathers owned one, and those people live under a lease, or they own them, and those are their domiciles. They live there full time. This is not what that is. But this is a structure that's an appreciating asset. It's not, trailers are depreciating assets like anything else that's on mobile devices. So what else did I miss?
There was a comment about whether they meet the building codes, but I think they do.
They've got a stamp of seal from the state of Kentucky, whatever the governing authority is, whether it's the state architect or the building conformance, and those things, they don't leave the site. The only entrance that will be used is on Stone River Drive. There won't be any gravel or other ancillary entrances or exits off the property that aren't already there, which is purely for farm use. And again, the expected third-party users are going to be very equine and equestrian concentric. This isn't a joyride to go to campground. There's so many of those around Kentucky that exist. That's not what this is. This is something that's very specialized, that furthers the equine and equestrian experience, and specifically on the farm to enjoy the wonderful thoroughbreds that we partner with our trainers.
Thank you. So, in some of the specific comments as far as the quality, that's been actually determined by the Architecture Review Committee. That's not, this is an architectural review, though we do feel like the quality of the cabins is good. We've taken note of the questions regarding finish, and I think they're very good comments. And, as far as the requirements to approve this, I disagree with the gentleman earlier. I do think, first of all, this is a very minimal impact that would be properly integrated and is appropriate for this facility. I think it does not do anything to denigrate from the character and objectives of the area, and I think it has a lot of very minimal potential impacts on the community. I don't think, folks get worried, oh, there's an adjoining 20 acres, what's going to happen? This is a slippery slope, and that's a fallacy. Every case for every property, as you all know, comes before you and is duly reviewed. And so just because you review and approve something that appropriately here doesn't mean you're going to set a precedent to review it appropriately somewhere, review it and approve it somewhere else. We do believe there's a need. We personally have a commercial farm need for these, as was already discussed, trainers and family to stay on the site. And there are also potential benefits to the community. And what other benefit I think would show up for Oldham County other than preserving one of these farms and preserving some of the rural character and allowing it to continue to operate. We don't think noise is going to be an issue. We think there's such a huge buffer. We don't think people are going to even see these cabins when they're put in. They're so far away. And we think it's very consistent with the integrity of this facility. So I'm open. And there's a question about facilities. We have adequate utilities, sewer, septic, and everything else. So I'm open to any questions or concerns.
Question. One of my pet peeves is safety. Concern is, and these trails. What, if any, kind of guarantee can they offer that will give people in the community peace that other people won't be using these trails? Because, as I see it, even in the national park, people are violating the law with going places that they shouldn't go.
Yeah, I would point out that there's mainly a thoroughbred facility, so there's not a lot of riding horses available. So they won't rent. I don't know how many people are going to bring their own horses in to get on the trails, if that's your concern. And then Don, you can talk about the location and the rest.
Yeah, it's a great question. So we have I think it's about 1,000 yards of adjoining community trail to our property. The access point is at the far other end where we share a driveway with our adjoining property owner. To access it, it's not even walkable. In fact, I was on the trail yesterday cleaning it up, and we repaired some fences, and a big tree had come down across. I told my crew to cut it up. We have full-time management and an assistant manager on the farm, and then we're also ramping up to have, if this is approved, to have a off-hours security personnel. For the safety of the horses that one of our neighbors brought up, I would be cutting my throat to not take into account the safety and welfare of the horses and our trainers who are our partners in this venture. So, absolutely, but the access to the trail is very difficult to get to. There's not going to be nobody's going to bring their trail horses on site. We don't have any trail horses. We have 100% thoroughbreds.
Does that answer your question, Mr. Turner?
I'm really not sure that you can answer that question well enough for me. Okay. Hear what you're saying, and I'm putting that together in my head. I'm concerned about these people who live there for years. And evidently, they've had problems with people using these trails. And now I can see their concern with you bringing this thing in. And then you're going to have people that may violate that. And what assurances would they have, if any?
I would point out that the approval that was received from L'Esprit includes a condition that these trails not be used, which L'Esprit can enforce. So if it becomes an issue, they can basically sue High Point or file a complaint or whatever else they need to do. So there is an enforceable agreement, in place as a condition of the architectural approval, which is, broader than really what my client had to give, because architectural approval is all they're required. But he agreed to these use restrictions as well to be a good neighbor
and to move this forward. So I feel like, L'Esprit, if they've got an issue, have a course of action, privately to do that. And they're very active, I understand, in enforcing the rules.
Will people in the community have access to the management there so that they can call and talk about these issues and problems?
Or they would. I mean, absolutely, yeah. Absolutely, there would have full availability, I'm sure.
All right. So I have a question too. So this is either for applicants' counsel or for staff. The issues raised by Robin with respect to the statutory disconnect where the Board of Adjustments may or may not have authority to even opine on this application due to boundaries, if you would, or regulations with respect to the type of zoning that we have. If you could someone give us some guidance on, are we authorized to even make an opinion on?
I think, one of the questions or one of the issues that was brought up was the definition of a camp or a campground. I can read it to you or put it on the overhead for everyone to see, but the zoning ordinance does define camps and campgrounds and specifically mentions things like cabins. Would you prefer me to put it up? Or
I did. Okay. You can put it on the overhead. That's fine. Jim, the question was raised by Bill to the board's standing on deciding this case. There were some questions about the regulations and definitions of campground, definitions of what we're trying to do. So that's where Brian was.
Give us some assurance that from a statutory perspective that we even have the authority to make a decision.
Let me start by telling you I feel very confident in the staff's decision to recommend to this applicant that they file for a recreational vehicle or campground. Long before, and I want to clarify, long before we ever thought about short-term rentals, this has been in the regulations. So it was contemplated many, many years ago that you could have a recreational camp or campground, RV park, whatever, and it was not considered to be a short-term rental. So I'm going to ask you to recommend, as your staff, that you take this idea of short-term rental off the table because that's inherent in a campground. We all know that if you go to a campground, it's short-term. So the first thing is that in the zoning classification, just to show you, and this was brought up by opposition, that as soon as this goes away, you'll see it. A conditional use in the ag zoning is recreational vehicle parks and campgrounds, okay? Also in our regulations, and this was brought up, is the definition of a campground, camp or campground. And specifically, when you get to the point where it says any permanent structure such as cabins, stop right there. Any permanent structure such as cabins. That's what they're proposing. A permanent structure on a foundation. Then it goes on to say must comply with the appropriate requirements for dwellings in that district. That means setbacks, sizes, and building permits. And they will be required to get a building permit. That's not all part of your purview. You can put that as a condition of approval, but you don't need to because in order to have these structures there, they need permits. One of the things we look for when we issue a building permit, we get plans. Our chief building inspector reviews those plans according to building codes. If it doesn't comply with the building code, they're asked to either modify their plans or they are denied. We haven't seen the plans yet. I'm going to assume that because they're pre-manufactured, as many are, houses are in Oldham County, and we permit them, they come with a sticker. They will be required to get electrical permit and HVAC permits, and of course comply with the Oldham County Health Department's requirements for on-site septic systems. So, again, I feel very confident that you do have the authority to hear this case, that as staff, and when we talked about it collectively, myself and Brian and Ryan, this fit into more into any other classification of either permitted use or conditional use than anything else. And again, I said earlier, simply because of the nature that this was more than one structure. If it were only one, we probably would have come here and said short-term rental. But because they desired to have more than one, we said it fits better in campground.
All right, thank you, Jim.
Thank you. That's helpful.
Thank you very much. So any other questions? We feel like that covered that very well.
Any other questions? All right, very good. Thank you.
We appreciate your time.
And opposition, you'll have time for rebuttal as well. Would you like to be is opposition in agreement that? Okay.
All right, in deciding this, I hearken back to the definitions as stated in Kentucky Revised Statutes, and that states specifically named. It's not an interpretation. It says specifically named. Now, I also have here what is allowed in the zoning district are recreational camps under the public parks and recreation. What is allowed as a conditional use is recreational vehicle parks and campgrounds, which are not defined in the zoning ordinance. And your zoning ordinance says if there's no definition, to see a planner's dictionary and use that definition. These words, recreational vehicle parks, recreational vehicle campgrounds, are defined in that dictionary. And I do not believe that you can render a decision because what they're asking for is not a specifically named conditional use. What we're trying to do is you're trying to squeeze it in somewhere, trying to make it the most applicable, but it's not specifically named. In addition, I want to address the modular homes. Your own zoning ordinance says that a modular home is a manufactured home. A manufactured home is not an allowable conditional use in these districts. Thank you.
Questions?
Just two quick statements. First, as Jim pointed out, any permanent structure such as a cabin must comply with appropriate requirements for dwellings in this district. Understand that this board does not use the covenants and restrictions for L'Esprit as in their considerations, but the L'Esprit covenants state that the minimum square footage for a single-story residence is 2,400 square feet. These are all been described as single-family residences, although temporary. The second thing is, I agree with Robin, you're trying to fit this into something where it doesn't fit. The owner himself stood up here just a few minutes ago and looked at you and said, this is not a campground. So if it is not a campground in his own words, how can you grant a conditional use permit for a campground when it's not a campground? Thank you.
All right. We'll have 5 minutes for final statements. Opposition, we're going to start with you. Would either of you like 5 minutes for final statements? No new testimony? Applicants, final statements?
Thank you. This has gone on fairly long, and I appreciate the diligence and the comments from everybody in the community. Just a few comments. We defer to the expertise of the staff regarding whether this is appropriate or not. We certainly feel like it is. There's this comment about, is it a campground or is it not a campground? The concern we have with the word is
what use has come up earlier. Is it like going to be a Boy Scout jamboree out there? No, it's not going to be like that. It's cabins. You know, that's the concept. We feel like the request is appropriate. We feel like the impact is minimal. We feel like this will be a benefit to the community and to the site. And we appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you. Jim, I'm just going to give you and Tate any additional time that if you have anything else that you'd like to bring to our attention. Okay, Tate? Anything?
Actually do again. Oh.
Stop the clock, please.
Based on me showing on the screen that we do have a definition of campground, and then hearing rebuttal saying we don't, I'm confused because I think very clearly there is a definition in the campground, which gives you the authority. It doesn't necessarily tell you to make up your mind about it, but I think it fits. So we've always also said that the Board of Adjustments interprets the gray matter of the zoning regulations. If there is ever a discussion about whether or not something fits, I was looking in KRS 100 to find that. I didn't get it. I'll keep looking for it. But we've always interpreted the regulations.
There is something in KRS 100. I know there is. So if you could find that, it does allude to interpretation. Ma'am, I apologize. If you'd like to come forward, I saw your hand, and my brain went right past you. This is final statements, ma'am? Yeah, okay.
So I'd just like to say that I'm going to rebut the statement that our covenants and restrictions dictate a 2,000 square foot home. We do, but only within the visual zone. Outside the visual zone, you can build a 200 foot residence. These are also not full-time dwellings. They're not homes. So I would think that that's your area of expertise as far as what's required building permit-wise and what's not. As far as enforcement of our protection of our bridle paths, yes, it has been an issue. We're addressing it. Some things are enforceable and some things are not. I have asked very specifically from Dawn and Randy, how are you going to enforce these rules that you're providing? Because I was impressed with the rules. I thought they were even more restrictive for the guests than I thought they would be. I know that they're very concerned about the horses' well-being and the trainers. If they violate the safety of the horses, people will leave in droves. There are other training facilities, so I can't imagine them doing that. If they forbid a guest from hauling in a horse trailer with a trail horse, they'll have to then not allow that person back in. No refundable staying fees. I mean, I would think that Randy and Dawn protecting the integrity of the farm will enforce their rules. If I didn't believe that, I wouldn't approve it. I'm not sure where your standing is and what your conditions can be and what you can enforce. Can you revoke a conditional use permit if there are violations? I would think so. I don't think it's perpetual if you grant it, if there's something that doesn't work, but that's your area. I just want to say that the size of these buildings is allowed outside the visual zone, and they're not permanent dwellings, homes.
Okay. Board members, questions? Okay. At this time, board, do you all have questions for anybody in the audience? Staff, opposition?
I'm going to accept what staff has indicated as far as this board's ability to go forward and make a decision in this case. I've heard stuff about the homeowner association. The homeowner association has approved this application. Homeowners association also, we don't get involved in homeowner rules and regulations. If the homeowner rules and regulations and the restrictions are being violated, then any resident or the homeowners association can take legal action to enforce those rules and regulations and to get an injunction against anything that's contrary
to their regulations. So, and I've been practicing law here for about 50 years, and I've watched L'Esprit over the years, and they've always had problems with the paths that horses ride on, but I think it's their responsibility to enforce the rules and regulations, and if you're prohibited from riding on those paths, then they can enforce that as well. Our office, I work for the county attorney's office, we've monitored and we've tried to assist over the years enforcing violators, trespassers from using those paths. It's not easy. There's one individual who has a horse facility, and his clients are always on that path. And but it's the responsibility of the homeowners association. That's their job, to hire the people to monitor violators on their own property. So that's basically all I've got to say. In the case we have a recommendation from the homeowners association approving this, and the lady that just spoke, I think, is on that homeowner association. So I would accept whatever she says is, at this point, whether or not there's a violation taking place or not. And I do encourage or support what staff says until I'm shown otherwise in the regulations. I ask this board to accept staff's recommendations.
Okay, thank you, Tate. Board members, questions for anybody else? Okay, I'm going to close the floor for public hearing, open it up for discussion.
Only question is the stipulations, I'm sorry. My only question is the stipulations that were specified in the Property Owners Association. They seem to answer a lot of the questions and concerns that the opposition has had. Is that something that we are able to take into consideration upon since it was presented to us?
You're talking about the HOA? Yeah, so we do not have authority over any homeowner association or any other bylaws standing. If there are problems or with the homeowner associations, it is the responsibility of the HOA to take action. But we do not have authority to, where the gray matter is in that is if I've thrown this out as an example before, but if the HOA says, I want all houses to be a certain color, and somebody wants another house and they're going to build it a different color, it doesn't meet the general character of the neighborhood. So that's where we can come into place to say, well, it does or does not meet the general character. But upholding the homeowner association, we don't have authority.
But one thing that this board does have authority to do is to put conditions in.
That's what I'm asking.
That you have heard testimony on today that may facilitate the process. And I don't think there's too many at this point, but there's been some testimony regarding conditions that you all can add if you wish to do so.
Specifically to include the things that were presented to us in that letter. Okay, that was my question. Thank you.
Some of the conditions I heard, and I heard the applicants, I think they're the ones that initially, volunteered these. I think he mentioned firearms. There will be no firearms. He doesn't want firearms. He even said a couple of times that there will be no trail horses. They are all thoroughbreds. He has no intentions of using the trail. And I think it's a point of contention with the opposition. So, yeah, we can talk about the conditions that we're thinking about. And, yeah. And I think using those conditions, we can satisfy a lot of what the opposition has.
I agree.
What I had heard as far as conditions, firearms, fires, trail paths. I think some of the other questions were answered. Is it concrete? Is it pre-built? The entrance, the gravel, all those were answered. So the conditions that I had heard that we can put was firearms, fires, and trail horses. Any other discussion? Do we want to consider those as conditions of approval?
I think just including that letter and referring back to it as part of the restrictions would be.
Do we want to put the letter back on the overhead?
So, while he's doing that, I might comment on it. So, my wife and I, well, first of all, I teach equine finance at the University of Louisville. I've been so I appreciate no firearms around horses and no trail riding of thoroughbred. So I.
Yeah, we've closed the floor, ma'am. Now, was there a second part of the letter?
Can you enlarge that?
Yeah, right. Was this part of public record? Is there any more? No. Gretchen, is this the letter that you're referring to? So this is the first I'm seeing at least the second part of the letter. Thoughts? Bill, what do you think? If we're going to make this a condition, since this is the first time I'm seeing it, we'll have to open. I'd like to open the floor back up, bring the applicants back forward, and see if they're okay with this. A problem that I have with this isn't really geared for a condition of approval. It's kind of odd that it's in this form of a letter, telling I can't put it, or we can, but I don't want to put a condition of approval to say that upon the fourth bullet up, as an example, upon departure, please collect all used sheets and towels, please, as a condition of approval. I don't want to put, it does make sense.
You don't have to accept all of them. You can, as the board, can decide which ones are more relevant and which ones address
and then specifically list conditions of approval to say no firearms, and so I'm fine with I'd rather do that than put this letter in as a condition of approval.
I think we can leave a lot of that up to the homeowners association to enforce the things that they need, like this. I mean, and again, as I said earlier, I mean, my wife and I have had a horse farm for 13 years, and I have never
testimony.
You're testifying. You can't do that.
It's not necessary. I think a lot of this is really not necessary to incorporate.
It's difficult on some of these because we don't have the authority, and we don't go out at night, and we aren't standing there at a gate, and we aren't looking at which horse is on which trail. These are I guess, agreements between the owners association and this particular applicant. The question was raised earlier about revocation of a conditional use. If there's evidence that any conditions that you place on the property on this approval, if you choose to approve it, then it becomes incumbent upon code enforcement and staff to go out and look and see if there is a violation. You can hear it. We can, and we have brought back conditional use permits. We're required by KRS 100 to actually examine once annually a conditional use permit that's been issued to see if there are violations. So some of these things we'll never cover. We just would never. And I'm going to just so I can read it. These again are just kind of logical things that may be necessary, but fire extinguishers in cabins for safety. I don't know whether they were, replace all furniture that was moved. I mean, we're not going to do that. We just aren't. So there are agreements between the applicant and the owners association if they choose to do it, separate from your conditional use.
And we're the floor's been closed. We're in point of discussion among board and staff. I think even reading through these and hearing testimony, I go back to the three: firearms, fire, and trail horses. I think those are the three that. What do you?
Our conditions.
Just add those three to the. What do you all think?
I don't think that those are necessary. Again,
You think leave them off?
a horse farm, there's no way you want firearms, fires, or trail riders around thoroughbreds. I mean, it's just.
I hear you, but in satisfying opposition.
Yeah, I think it's important because we're up here deciding between two groups, and we're trying to find a medium. That's the medium. I understand what you're saying, but we need to think about everybody. So therefore, we find the medium, and that's the medium.
Three things. I cannot imagine they're going to object. So it's a moot point, but I can go either way, I guess. Yeah.
All right. Any other discussion? If not, I'm ready to take a motion.
Motion to approve OC 23-008 for the conditional use permit for a recreational campground, 6 campsites at 4600 Stone River Drive, LaGrange. The character and objectives of the proposed use and the potential impact on the community and its surroundings are appropriate. The proposed use will not impair the integrity and character of the zone if there are specific restrictions enforced. There are adequate public facilities available, including sanitation, water, sewage, drainage, emergency services, and the like. This conditional use shall only apply to the application's testimony, plans, and justification statement considered at the March 16th, 2023 Oldham County Board of Adjustments public hearing.
Are you going to add any conditions?
Did we decide that was not necessary?
I would like to.
Okay. All right. So we're looking at potential conditions of approval of no use of firearms on the property, no open fires anywhere on the property, and the non-use of the community's bridle path by anyone staying at High Point Training Facility. That's my motion.
Yeah, let me just have one other comment. Any farm over, like this last week, 2 weekends ago, we had a big storm. So you typically have a burn pile on a farm where you burn, when you get trees that fall down and stuff like that you have to do something with it. So
This would only apply to the campground situation.
Fires? Yeah, campfires are one thing. Yeah.
This is only applying to the campground situation, not the operation of the.
Got it. All right.
And that is my motion.
So just to satisfy that, Jim, Tate, do we need to modify what was the one on the, just no open fires? Is that what you said, or do we need to modify that to say no open fires beyond operational?
Anything that condition you put on, you're only putting it on the approval of the campground
Okay.
and use of the cabins.
All right.
The testimony had to do with open fires outside, not grills or.
Well, just as an example, and I'm going to say this, and I'm not sure it's true, but somebody can tell me, yell from the audience. The owner of this property has the right to use the trails because they're an owner. He said he didn't have a horse. I don't know that he intends to ever have a horse, but as an owner, I think he could use the trails without objection. It's the use by the people in the campground or in these cabins. That all of this is going to only relate to, you can't regulate above and beyond the application, which is for.
So her conditions are okay because it is strictly geared toward the application, which is the cabins.
I also want to consider excluding recreational vehicles in addition, because you're having cabins and you don't want, I don't think they want a lot of recreational vehicles coming in and parking and using the facility, even though it's called a campground. I'm thinking.
I think that statement that you say, the condition shall only be applied to the testimony, plans, and justification statement considered today. It covers that, and that's
That's right.
Yeah. I checked with the applicant, and he said they do use golf carts, but those aren't RVs. But if you want to put that condition on, I think it's reasonable.
again. I think wasn't it said in testimony that?
Well, let me just say, we always have, and you haven't said it yet, only applies to the application that was submitted on this date. They did not testify that they were going to have recreational vehicles in this. So
Okay.
if they did, I mean, it's inherent in your decision and your binding element that it only applies to the plan that was submitted today.
And I did include that in the conditions. I mentioned that, so that should be a matter of record.
All right. So we have a motion. Do I have a second?
A second.
Discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? It's been approved.
Headache.
Okay. Yep. Ready?
Second.
A horse. And I fired that pistol first down. Does it switch it over? Isn't that deer?
For those on the previous case, if
I like it.
If somebody was next to me, that horse didn't like it, they get tossed.
all right, Gretchen, you want to read the next one, please?
Docket OC 23-010, an application has been filed for the removal of a previously issued, are we doing?
That one's been tabled.
That? I'm so
That's
sorry.
right. Go to the next one.
Next one. Docket OC 23-011, an application has been filed for the conditional use permit for a mini warehouse storage, self-storage facility on a property located at 6007 Claymont Village Drive, Crestwood.
Thank you. Ryan Fisher, Senior Planner, Oldham County Planning and Development, 100 West Jefferson Street in LaGrange. So as we stated, this here before you today is a conditional use permit at 6007 Claymont Village Drive for a mini warehouse and self-storage facility on that property. So here is your site information. It is located in a C3 commercial zoning area. It's currently undeveloped and sits on 1.26 acres of land. No previous site history. Case history shows where we notified our adjoining property owners on the 6th of March, and public notice appeared in the Oldham Era on the 9th. Here is your property in question, Claymont Village Drive. You got Veterans Parkway right here in the rear, Burger King, Christian Brothers Automotive, give you an idea of where we're looking at. Here is your zoning for that area. Once again, located in a C3 commercial zoned district. So the applicant is proposing an indoor self-storage facility, mini warehouse, which requires a conditional use permit in that C3 general business district. I did attach our regulations to show where you can see in that C3 where that's what we're here for today, to get that conditional use permit. Section 260-400 of our regulations deal with conditional use standards for those self-storage facilities. And it really looks at 3 points there. Many warehouses shall be limited to storage use only. No other commercial, wholesale, or industrial use is permitted. Plumbing is prohibited in those, and then the minimum lot size is 3 acres. So I have that highlighted. You'll see here in a second, they are going to be going before the Planning Commission at the end of the month to have 2 waivers heard. One of those waivers is going to be on that minimum lot size. So they're on 1.26 acres, so they'll be asking for waivers for that as well. The proposed plan outlines a 3-story, 220 by 80 foot climate-controlled building. Footprint of that building is 17,600 square feet. The overall square footage is 52,800 square feet, and their proposal is for 300 storage units. They will also be asking for a parking waiver. So this is those 2 sections on the waivers, which the Planning Commission will hear at their March 28th meeting. So they'll be asking for a parking waiver for 16 parking spaces. Those current regulations require a minimum of 30 spaces. 1 space per 10 storage units, plus 1 space for each employee. So they're going to ask for a parking waiver to allow 16 parking spaces. And they may talk a little bit about that, but obviously self-storage facilities have a little bit less everybody there at one time than just the come and go. And then also that waiver of the conditional use section for that minimum lot size. So once again, both those waivers will be heard at that March 28th, 2023 Planning Commission public hearing. So once again, here's your property in question. And then here are your plans which were provided to you for the facility. So in summary, the applicant's requesting a conditional use permit from you all for the mini warehouse and self-storage facility in that C3 commercially zoned district. And our potential conditions of approval, disregard the word variance there. The conditional use permit shall only apply to the application considered at that March 16th, 2023 Oldham County Board of Adjustments public hearing. And the approval of the conditional use permit shall be subject to the waivers being requested at that March 28th, 2023 Oldham County Planning Commission public hearing, and that is PZ 23-006. With that, that concludes my presentation. I will say that I did receive 1 phone call on this the other day on March 13th, and I only say this up front because I'd like for the applicants to address these. The applicant is out of state for the winter, so they said they were not going to be able to be here, but they were going to check back with me to find out what was heard. So their concerns were the entrance and exit. They live in the condo complex just across the street. Their concerns were the entrance and exit and the loading and unloading area in the front. And we're wanting that to be pushed to the back. I think the applicants are ready to address why they may not be able to do that. They were also concerned with tractor trailers coming in and out of the property. And then also we're just kind of wanting to know a timetable for construction. So if the applicants could address those, that would be great. And then I can follow up with her. She can watch this on demand to be able to see what those answers are. But those were her concerns, and that's the only thing I've received on this project.
Can you orient me again? Go back to
that one
there. Which one is Burger King?
Down here.
All right, then Christian
Brothers.
It's further down.
And then that adjoining property owner was in this building here of this complex, is where they were located.
What are you showing me on this particular image? What is the red circle?
Just where that building is going.
Okay. All right. What is the other building? Yeah, that one.
That one, what is it? Office building.
All right. Questions for Brian?
If not, let me bring up.
Just trying to understand that the area over by Veterans Memorial there, outside the yellow boundary, is that just public area? What is that over where your pointer is right now? Yeah.
Over here? just state right away.
That's not part of the property, so that's a buffer.
And I'm pretty sure this falls off pretty considerably back here. They'll be able to tell you more about that. But
Okay.
because the other thing the adjoining property owner did bring up was they would like to see an entrance directly off the parkway and not on that side of the building. I told them that was probably not going to be granted, and so
That's helpful. Thank
that
you.
was obviously state right of way there. That
I guess one of the questions that one of the opposition raised was the semi trucks. I mean, are they going to be able to get in and get out? I mean, is there enough room for them to?
I think they're ready to talk about that. There was a previous, when I first started here back July of last year, there was a conditional use permit for a self-storage facility over here in LaGrange. And that was one of the conditions of approval put in that one. But I believe those areas aren't very similar in nature. So they'll talk about, that this is more of a kind of a commercial area and that tractor trailers are, able to pull in there and pull out. But I'll let them justify that rather than me.
All right.
Why is the regulation 3 acres for a self-storage facility? What's the purpose of that? Don't know.
Been in the regulations for a long time, and I don't even think I was here when it was written, so it's there. We've actually never reviewed it, so.
All right, and going to the planning commission, we've got that one, the lot size. What was it about the parking?
The parking requirement where it is, let me go back to it. So the regulation is 1 space per 10 storage units plus 1 space for each employee. So that would require them to have 30 spaces. Their plans call for 16. I believe it's 15, and then 1 handicapped, I believe is listed in there. So.
Right. Any other questions for Ryan? Thank you, Ryan. We can have the applicant come forward.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. My name is Cliff Ashburner. I'm a lawyer with Dinsmore and Scholl. Our office address is 101 South 5th Street, Suite 2500, Louisville 40202, here on behalf of Mason Construction. Do I need to be sworn before I speak?
Are you an attorney? You're a counsel. You don't need to be sworn in.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you taking the time with us today. Our use is actually listed among the conditional uses, so I hope this case will be a little simpler to digest than what you've been dealing with already this morning. I have with me Dan Perkins, who's principal with Mason Construction and Development. I also have Mike Hill with Land Design and Development. Mike and his firm drew the plan that we're going to talk about today. So, here we go. You asked a question, Mr. Chairman, about the minimum lot size. I'm going to speculate a little bit that the minimum lot size was based on a form of self-storage that was prevalent in the 80s and 90s, which was kind of the barracks-style garage buildings and with drive aisles between them, and so you need a certain amount of land for those things to work. This use that we're presenting to you today is a different kind of self-storage. It's Class A, climate-controlled, all-interior self-storage. It is intended to fit on smaller sites, closer to residential. And so I'll tell you a little bit more, but we think this is a very good neighbor. As you all may be familiar with this area, this property, this lot in particular, was zoned some time ago. It is zoned C3, and among the permitted uses in the C3 zone are some uses that have kind of greater impacts when you think about what does somebody off-site experience. And so when I'm talking about the volume of traffic that might be generated, the amount of light that might be involved, the amount of odor, and those include things like restaurants. They include some kind of curious uses like fireworks stands, but they also include offices and some other uses where you will probably generate more traffic than you will with this, you will probably generate more light, more noise. And when you're thinking of, as a residential neighbor, most of the time people are trying to minimize those impacts, trying to minimize traffic, minimize light, minimize noise. So the slide that you have here before you, you can see we have the commercial along 329. As Ryan mentioned, you got, a mix of uses. So you have, Burger King, which is fast food. That's going to generate a lot of traffic. You've got the Christian Brothers Automotive, probably doesn't generate quite as much traffic, but is maybe a little bit more intense use in terms of noise just because of the work they're doing there. And then you have the offices here that were built by Mr. Perkins. And then, of course, further up, you've got some more kind of traditional retail. Because of the size and the difficulty of developing this site, and really the lack of access off of 329, it really doesn't set up well as a retail location. It might work for office, but probably doesn't, largely based on the fact that we're all sort of rebalancing the location of our work. And so, new office construction right now is either non-existent or very, very little. So this is another look at the plan. You can see the building is designed very similarly to the offices that are next door in terms of its location on the site, its orientation toward Claymont Village Drive. The one big difference is that with the office, you do need a significant amount of parking for the employees that are there. And so you can see the offices, they've got a parking lot in front and in back. The proposal here would be only to have parking in the front. So the people would come in, unload, and then move on. To answer the question about access for trucks, the site has been designed so that trucks can maneuver into it, but that is a pretty rare event. Most of these units are 10 by 10, and if you were to bring in a moving truck, let's say, you would need to have 2 10 by 20 units. So 2 very large units, the largest ones that are available there. Most of the traffic that comes in is a box truck or a pickup truck or a passenger vehicle. Frankly, people, moving things out of their home, moving into an apartment for a temporary period of time, or some other kind of life transition where they need to store some of their goods outside of their residence. So again, this is the site plan along Claymont Village Drive. There'll be landscaping. I'm going to show you some photos in just a minute just to tell you or really show you the kind of slope that is on the property and really why access from 329 is not possible. So again, these are some of the surrounding uses. This was the site pre-clearing. Mr. Perkins has received approval and has conducted some clearing. You'll see some photos of that site in just a minute. This is the adjoining office building. Very traditional looking office building. These are office condominiums, so these offices are owned. And then you can see 329 on the left-hand side of this photo, the more traditional retail in the distance there, and really that topography that runs down 329. This is the subject property. This was about, 6 days ago, maybe 7 days ago. You can see it has been cleared. The silt fence is in place. This was done with appropriate permits. This area here, Member Furco, is state right-of-way that's directly adjacent to 329. And that's just another shot of what 329 looks like in this area. So this is the proposed building. The building materials that are included here are really a mix of masonry. So anywhere you see gray, you're looking at stone or brick. These are the white areas. There probably will not be that kind of bright white. They'll probably be a little more muted. But those are metal panels. And then there's siding in this area. Of course, you've got glazing in the front of the building as well. These are, conceptual renderings of the proposed building. So in this rendering, for instance, you don't see the landscaping, you don't see the parking lined out. And then this is the view really from 329. Of course, this is the view without landscaping and without the existing landscaping along the right-of-way. Again, it's a more contemporary building than the office buildings that are out there, but you do have a nice mix of building materials and glazing to give it a little bit more of an office appearance, a little bit less of an industrial appearance. The standards you all just went through, the standards for granting a conditional use permit. We think that this will serve the area according to a market analysis that Mr. Perkins had done. This area is underserved as it sits today for self-storage, especially this Class A completely interior climate-controlled storage. And we are aware, and I think all of you are probably aware of a fair amount of residential and mixed-use development that is coming north on 329, closer to I-71, and even multifamily that's under construction in that area right now. So as those dwelling units come on, especially the multifamily, we think that the demand in the area is going to go up even more. And we don't need to get into the parking waiver. I did a joint presentation because we're going to be coming back before the Planning Commission. So I'm happy to take any questions. Dan or Mike, is there anything that you think that you'd like to add? Would you like to say something?
So I need to get you, are you an attorney, Dan, or I need you to get sworn in and state your name and address, please.
My name is Dan Perkins. I'm with Mason Construction and Development, 6244 Old LaGrange Road in Crestwood. And I'm the developer of the property.
Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Just want to mention that the site has been sitting there. These lots have been sitting there for 14 or 15 years.
Let me get you to talking to the mic.
Just 14 or 15 years. I've been trying to buy them for about 6 or 7 years, and have made several offers on a property. I built the office building that's to the right of this lot. We had intentions of building additional office space on this lot and the lot to the right. So I bought 3 commercial lots in this area on the same street on Claymont Village Drive. I just want to point out that the site, one of the reasons that the sites didn't sell is because of the severe slope back down to the bypass. And it basically goes down into a ravine and then back up to the bypass. So the idea, the design of the building was to have only an entrance from Claymont Village Drive, and then have the back of the building face the bypass. We put glass up above. You've seen some of the storage that shows the doors through the glass on which would be the bypass side, the other picture we had. And we're trying to keep the light from projecting onto the patio home area. So the interest would be on the patio home side, which is the upper side. And this building design currently is designed where there would be a 20-foot concrete wall poured in the front of the building that would act as a retaining wall. It'd be 1 story above grade at the Claymont Village Drive side, and then there would be actually 3 stories showing on the back side. Now, it looks big in this picture, But when you're coming down the bypass is about even with the bottom of the glass on the upper part. So we were going to put glass all the way down, but you just couldn't even see it from the bypass. So we just did that around the top, and so it's a very preliminary design. We are still in the works on it, but this is I want to put some of the stone elements in it, mixing the siding with horizontally and vertical panels, and try to make it fit in best we can. So there's going to be no fencing around this property. The security will be cameras around the outside of the building, and also all the interior hallways. And the only way into the building will be a sliding parting door at the Claymont Village side. So,
Thank you. Questions?
Going to have one parking space per 10. What is it? One space per parking space.
I think it comes out to about 1 per 20 units.
1 to 20 units. Okay. My concern is, I'm looking at pictures that I was able to see. You got one way in and one way out. Are you going to have? A? I know there will be some tractor trailers pulling up in there at times. We can't just assume that it's going to be small vehicles. But will there be enough room for something to pull up in there as large as that to unload without causing problems for the parked vehicles and all the other things that are going to be in there? In the parking spots I'm talking about.
In the pull-in parking spots, I think that would not create a problem at all. The parking spaces, let me go back to site plan. So this is the site plan you can see here. A vehicle would need to pull in here, pull up like this, and then pull back out. Obviously, these spaces here, I don't think it would create a problem for at all. Again, the reason I said that we think that a moving truck is going to be a rare visitor is just based on the volume of a moving truck compared to the volume of a typical unit. So somebody, if they have a moving truck's worth of things that they need to store, they're going to have to either rent multiple units here, or they might choose to go to another facility where they can rent a larger space. But the site is designed with radii on the curves in order to allow for a truck to access the property. We just don't think it's a likely occurrence. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Are there any other, I don't know that I've ever seen, maybe I have, I don't know, but completely interior, climate-controlled storage facilities? Are there any other in the area that, I'm just trying to relate this to.
I'm familiar with one that I believe was a rehab of an existing building.
Right. It's not, there's not many. Okay.
There are a couple in Jefferson County, but I can think of two examples. One is downtown. That was, again, a renovation of an old industrial building. And then there's one that is close to the intersection of the Watterson and I-64, okay. Which was purpose-built that way.
So the traditional storage facility is a bunch of bays. You pull your car up to a bay, you unload your car, truck, whatever, and there's even some that are multiple, two-story type storage facility. That's not what this is. This has one door in front. You pull your car up to the front, you unload, you go inside, you either go elevator or whatever to whatever floor you need, and that's how this operates, right?
Correct.
Okay. So how many different bays, storage bays?
There are 300 units. 300. Yeah. We think about 300 units.
So talk to me about traffic. Is it possible that you've got a truck that's sitting there at the front door, one that's behind them, and another that's behind him, and will that all back up to whatever street that is?
Village Drive.
Village Drive. So is it possible to create that condition? And whatever that answer is, it's also my understanding that there is not entrance to Claymont Village off of this Claymont Village Drive. Is there?
Not to the patio homes, I don't believe, no.
Patio homes, right.
Patio homes, you would come in Claymont Crossing and then go up. Claymont Village Drive really is a cul-de-sac that currently serves the office building. That's it.
So genesis behind my question is it possible to create some sort of traffic condition, with multiple vehicles trying to unload? 300 bays could result in 5 or 6 different cars at any given time, or?
I wish that would happen. But,
okay.
Normally, people come in, they unload, they go to the elevator, they put their stuff in the elevator, they take it down, they put it in the unit, they come back up, and they leave. They don't hang out there. It's my experience with other facilities that we have is that they are there for a very short period of time. And, I guess you could have a couple of people there at the same time, but
even if there are a few people at the same time, what traffic condition are you causing? Maybe for primary care? Is that the only thing that's impacted?
Yes, yeah, and primary care is just one unit in that building.
Okay.
But yes, I would think that they wouldn't even exit our parking lot.
Okay.
And on the property, on that cul-de-sac, there is only 4 lots. There's the corner lot right behind the Burger King and Christian Brothers. There's the slot that we're proposing here, and the office building that I built next door, and then there's a pie-shaped lot in the back. And like I say, I bought all 3 lots, all 4 of them really, but I've sold the one. And the other 2, we don't have plans for right now. So, I think that it's going to be minimal use of that cul-de-sac is my point, I guess.
All right. Any other questions?
I have a question, just looking at this map. So there's currently a 15-foot sanitary and storm drainage easement that kind of goes underneath the building, and it looks like it's being redirected around the building. And
that's correct.
On this blueprints I have here. So is the developer putting that in? I just want to make sure taxpayers aren't going to
yes, we
with the
would
build.
Relocate that sewer line, yes. And that's another reason why the lots haven't sold, because there's sewer lines running through the middle of the lots.
Okay, thank you.
To be redirected.
Okay, any other questions?
Need a parking waiver regardless, because there's not room for 30 spaces from what I'm seeing here. But why only 16? It does seem like there's room for more. Is just an aesthetic issue. And if you had a larger paved area, it seems like it would mitigate the possibility of having a tractor trailer coming in there. If the standard is 1 parking space for every 10 units, 300 units, 30 parking spaces wouldn't even include employees. So that's not going to happen. But why only 16? That's my only question.
Well, I'll let Dan chime in on this as well, but primarily the 16 is just driven by how how facilities that are configured this way have operated and do operate in other markets. There's really just not a need for more parking than what is being shown here. Most of these facilities, and just one other thing that's partially to answer your question and partially to answer Chair Otterbach's question. We were not required to produce a traffic study because of the low traffic generation that comes from this use. Most of the time, facilities like this, they take a time to fill up, and people leave their goods in there for a long period of time. They're not coming in and out. And so, there is a time period where people are coming in, loading. It also happens to be the case that those busy times are times when people are available to move their own goods. So those are typically times on the weekends, in the evenings, that do not conflict with others in the area. And, yeah, I know this board, well, not this board, the LaGrange board, I think, saw a very similar facility about a year ago, very similar circumstance, and really the demand for parking just isn't there in a facility like this.
Restrictions that we were talking about with the 3 acres and these one parking place per every 10 unit is really geared towards a different type of self-storage type facility. Okay, thank you.
Can you talk to me a little bit about lighting and signage?
Do whatever Jim says.
Good answer.
What I did on the last project. So we developed the Buckner Point. We developed the Buckner Point storage, corner of Cedar Point Road and 146, and had some lighting issues with the tilting of the light coming around the corner from 146, and it was just in everybody's eyes. We adjusted that down. All the lighting will be LED lighting. There will be the flat type light on a pole if they are actually in the parking lot, and they can be adjusted down. They would project away from any of the patio home area up here. Again, put the glass on the back of the building. The glass will be lit at night, but the light will not project to the front of the building. It will only be projected towards the back. And with the new LED lighting, we had to adjust some lighting on the back of Buckner Point storage, putting shields around the exit lights for the fire doors coming out towards the subdivision that's behind us. So we would meet all requirements for outdoor lighting. The
Signage?
Signage would be on the building, facing the bypass and on the front side of the building. So, and it will be, the front side of the building would be dimmed or backlit so that it doesn't project onto the patio homes. The signage really on the Claymont Village Drive is not important to us, just the bypass. So it would be probably a channel sign, channel letters, backlit that just lights up the back of them so you see the darkness of the storage sign on that side. So,
all right. Any other questions? Thank you, guys.
That's really all we have. I think that we've provided enough evidence for you to approve the conditional use permit, understanding that we do have to go before the Planning Commission to seek some additional relief. I appreciate your questions, and I'll reserve any additional time we have if there is need for rebuttal. Thank you.
We only had the one letter, or, yeah, as you, sorry, just the one. Okay, is there anybody else here wishing to speak in favor of the application? Opposed to the application? Anything else to add? Board, any questions for anybody? Okay, I'll close the floor, open it up for general discussion.
The fact that the land has been sitting there vacant, the land has been sitting there vacant because it hasn't had anything move in because of the limitations of the property, that this is an appropriate use of the existing property.
All right, any other discussion? Ready to take a motion?
Motion to approve OC 23-012. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm messed up on the motions. I'm not marking them off correctly. Forgive me. Motion to approve OC 23-011 for the conditional use permit for a mini warehouse self-storage facility on the property located at 6007 Claremont Village Drive in Crestwood. Based upon the testimony we've heard today, the community and neighborhood is underserved and is in need for the proposed use, and there are potential benefits to the community. and neighborhood. It is compatible with the surrounding land uses and the general character of the area, including factors such as height, bulk, scale, intensity, traffic, noise, odor, drainage, dust, lighting, and appearance. And the application does not represent an unreasonable circumvention of the elements and objectives of the comprehensive plan. The potential conditions of approval: the conditional use permit shall only apply to the application and plans considered at the March 16th, 2023 Oldham County Board of Adjustments public hearing. Conditional use permit shall be subject to the waivers being requested at the March 28th, 2023 Planning Commission hearing, PZ 23-006.
Okay, we have a motion. Do I have a second? Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? It's been approved. All right, Gretchen, if you'd like to read the next one.
OC 23-012, an application has been filed requesting a road frontage variance for a tract located at 4707 Deep Woods Place, LaGrange.
Vogel, Assistant Director. The requests in front of you all today are for the creation of 2 5-acre parcels that do not have the required amount of minimum road frontage. Notification for today's variance request was posted on the county's website. Adjoining property owners were notified, and public notice was placed in the Oldham Mirror. Location of the request is basically where the stub street of Deep Woods Place comes in off of the Heather Green subdivision. Right here is Cedar Point Road. This is Heather Green subdivision. Here's the stub street right here. And what we're here to hear about today is this area right here. It's a 10-acre parcel that the applicants are requesting to divide into 2 5-acre parcels. Originally, this 10-acre parcel, and I'm going to show you a plat here in a minute, this 10-acre parcel where there is a house, and all this property over here belonged to a parent tract of 47 acres with this house right here on Cedar Point Road. And you guys have actually heard variance requests for the creation of those lots, so that impacts what you have in front of you today. So in March of 2007, the board granted a variance allowing the creation of a 10-acre parcel. It's on the stub street of Deep Woods Place with its address being 4710. That is this parcel right here, 10-acre parcel that you all granted in March of 2007. And then in November of 2007, you all are allowed road frontage variances requiring the creation of 2 10-acre parcels, one of which is in front of you today, where they want to do something different with that 10-acre parcel by dividing it in half. And those 10-acre parcels that you all approved in November 2007 was this 10-acre parcel here. And then the one that's in front of you all today are these 2 5-acre parcels, which was created as a 10-acre parcel. And then the residual property that fronts on Cedar Point Road is this tract 1 right here. Highlighted in red is the 10-acre parcel that's in front of you all today. The zoning in the area is residential, agricultural, and conservation. In the specifics in terms of what are being requested with the road frontage variances, and we might go back and forth on the survey plat, is that tract 2 identified on the survey plat would be requesting a road frontage variance of 300 feet And then tract 3 on the survey plat would be requesting a road variance of 270 feet. Now, access to both of these properties would be through an existing shared driveway, which is located right here. And there is an easement recorded on that shared driveway. So the tract 2 is requiring a variance of 300 feet in road frontage to be created. And then tract 3 would require a variance of 270 feet because it currently has 30 feet of frontage on the substreet of Deepwoods Place. The applicants have proposed to take tract 4, which is right here, and consolidate it with tract 1 to put those two back together in creating this 5-acre tract and this 5-acre tract, which is significant from the standpoint that our subdivision regulations say that whenever you have a shared driveway or a joint access, you're allowed to have 3 properties come off of that shared access. If you go over that 3, you've bumped yourself up into a major subdivision versus doing something with a minor plat. And that is the request that's before you all today to grant the road variances, allowing the creation of the 2 5-acre parcels out of the original 10 there. We have not received any letters in regards to this. After the adjoining property owner notices went out, we got less than a half dozen phone calls from adjoining property owners simply asking, what is the application, and no one has stated an opinion or followed up after those phone calls.
Okay. Questions?
Well, I have a question. I don't know how you possibly have a 0 road frontage if you have to put in. I mean, I someday probably that that other area is going to get developed or something's going to go there, and the road will have to go in, and then what do you do with utilities and just access for the road?
There is a joint access easement for those things, and that's where our subdivision regulations cap that at joint access of 3 lots only. And if you go past those 3 lots, it tips the definition into major subdivision, where all the issues that you're talking about to serve multiple lots greater than 4 have to be addressed through an entirely different process.
I just can see that ultimately happening, and then we're going to get in trouble. That's my concern, is that if we grant the 0, the 0 frontage right now, down the road, it's going to cause a problem.
And if it,
no pun intended.
Right. Yes, if it goes to that 4th lot, that's where there's a much more involved process with going through a major subdivision approval process. That someone can ask to have a shared driveway or joint access with 3 parcels, which is what their request is here today. The existing 10 acres with the house at 4710, and then dividing this 10-acre parcel into 2 5-acre parcels with the shared access being this private driveway. If someone proposed to divide any of these properties that gain access off of that shared driveway in the future, it would immediately tip it over to a major subdivision, which would require engineering and a public hearing process and addressing, public right-of-ways and utilities before the Planning Commission.
So where is the access easement right now?
Now the access easement is on the western side of the property. It's this line that's right here, and and I can go back to an aerial if you like, Chairman, where this house at 4710 has access to that, and if you all approve the variances, these 2 tracts would have access to that shared driveway off this easement also.
Yeah, so it looks like it extends, actually it looks like it goes to tract 4. Is it not servicing tract 4?
It is. So one of the things that we've listed under your all's potential conditions of approval, should you approve it, would be we need to ensure that access easement gets re-recorded to where it does not provide access to track 4 because they're proposing to consolidate track 4 with track 1, which has road frontage along Cedar Point Road.
Got it. I got a couple questions when you're ready. Legal standpoint.
Go ahead.
First of all, is there a current road maintenance agreement in place?
Equipped to answer that question. The applicants are here. They should be able to answer that question.
That's one of the requirements for this type of proposal. Now, another question is, if you're going to combine track 1 and 4, which you would need to do, they have separate owners at the present time, although they're related, but they're separate, according to this. So, how are you gonna join those two together with those two separate owners?
I would again defer to the applicants to answer those questions.
Yeah, good questions. All right, any other questions for Brian? All right, thank you. And if we can have the applicants come forward, please. Morning, afternoon.
Good noon. Lori Beth Mudd. My home address, 4001 Old Highway 53, LaGrange, Kentucky.
Speaking to the mic.
I'm Bob Vincent with Vincent Engineering, 1000 Cherrywood Place, Suite 200, and I am the land surveyor to answer questions if we have any.
And get you both sworn in.
Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you.
All right.
So we are here today. My husband and I currently are the owners of this tract. We have decided that we would like to sell it, and it is most marketable for us to sell it in 2 5-acre tracts. So we're asking for this road frontage variance and your all's approval, so we can move forward with the sale of the property.
Okay.
Any other questions for me?
Well, I think you heard Tate's question. If we consolidate 1 and 4, so do you understand the road can only service 3 lots? So we're going to have to cancel the service to 4, consolidate the 2. How do you consolidate the 2 under 2 different owners?
It is family property, and the back 10 is our brother's, and he is going to give it back to our father, who owns the largest portion of these tracts.
Okay.
I didn't understand a bit of that.
So Stephen is going to deed tract 4 back to Kathleen.
Correct.
Okay. Are there currently homes on these properties?
There is one home on the largest tract, and then there is one home at the 4710 Deep Woods Court.
Which one is, just can you point?
Yes, right.
The homes are,
Oh.
these are the mouse, yeah.
So there is a home here currently. That was the original home, and there's a home here that was built back in 2007. There's no homes on these 3 tracts.
Perfect. All right.
Now, my other question was, you realize that you're going to have what is called a road maintenance agreement that accesses this current drive and those 3 lots that you're going to end up with, a sharing agreement on maintaining the road.
Is there currently an agreement?
Not currently agreement, correct? And there was not at the time that we broke these tracts up in the.
Which the staff will require that at such time as a permit is granted for any construction, I'm sure. So as long as you understand that, that's a requirement for it.
We agree with that.
All right.
So I don't understand the reason for reducing the road frontage from 300 feet to 0 in one and 300 to 30 in the other. What's the need to have like zero frontage, yeah.
Answer that if you don't mind. Okay, so we're not reducing the request. The request is for a variance. Okay, we have zero road frontage because we're on an access easement. Each track is required to have 300 feet of road frontage in order to create them by the current regulations. So we're not reducing. We're just asking for the ability to create the tracks with what is technically 0 feet of road frontage. It's something we do on a very regular basis. It's not, not something new.
Yeah, so
Go ahead.
well, track 3 is serviced by which road?
You've got Deep Roads Place that terminates at the southwest corner of track 3.
Okay.
So we actually have 30 feet of road frontage.
Woods Place.
Woods Place. So we only need, the variance is only for 270 feet on track 3, and then track 2, we've got to have 300 feet of.
All right, so Deep Woods Place, 30 feet, services track 3. That's where the drive picks up, and the drive services the rest of track 3 and track 2.
And I'm trying to think of a way to simplify this. Basically, what we're doing is we're trading track 4 for the ability to subdivide and create tracks 2 and 3. We're not gaining anything when we consolidate track 4 with track 1. Then that goes away. And again, the owner is very aware. There's not currently a maintenance agreement. When this was done long ago, they weren't required to do it. But we do have to create a new maintenance access agreement that will be between tracks 2, 3, and then Frederick Mudd, they're all family. So, yeah, everybody's aware of that.
So I have a question. I mean, is it possible for us to require a frontage on the drive, even though it's a private drive right now?
Variance is created because they don't have frontage on a public street.
Right.
But we do allow up to 3 tracks on a private drive, which is what they're proposing. So in doing that without creating a public street, they're asking for a variance.
Okay. So since it's private, we cannot create a frontage requirement for a private drive, is what you're telling me?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay, I got it now. All right.
Okay. Any other questions?
Yeah, the intent to subdivide this is for the purpose of sale, is that correct? Okay, so the maintenance agreement would have to be established prior to the sale of the property, is that correct? Or prior to,
You're going to have to go ahead and join those 2 tracks now.
so we don't need a maintenance agreement today, but we would need they would need a maintenance agreement for the sale of that property?
That's left to staff.
Okay. Sorry.
That is done when they submit, if this were to be approved, they would submit a minor plat application, and it would include a consolidation, and that's when we require that maintenance agreement.
So this board does not need to concern itself with that maintenance agreement.
It's a requirement of the minor plat.
So this board only has to concern itself with the road frontage, the 0 and the 270.
Correct.
Okay. Who presented this one? Brian, you did. Was there no email of support or opposition? I think you've already said that.
Correct. We just got phone calls after the adjoining property owner notices went out with people asking questions. What are they asking for? And then, it was explained to them, but no follow-up from any of those phone calls.
All right. Is there anybody here wishing to speak in favor of the application? Opposed to the application? Yes, sir. You can state your name and address and get sworn in.
Scott Elwell, 3000 Heather Green Boulevard in LaGrange.
And let's get you sworn in.
Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. I wasn't really prepared to talk. I got the letter, and that's why I'm here, just as a homeowner. I live in Heather Green, It looks like, I can't really tell, but that lot just where that road ends on the very bottom, where I guess it's 17. Looks like I live at 17. Yeah, right there. But that's my home right there. And I can tell you that I came here with no idea. When I saw a variance for, I just saw that you guys sent me a letter because my property is close by. I had no idea. I learned everything I learned about this today sitting here. So I can tell you that there'd be a lot of people in Heather Green neighborhood that would be concerned had they known more about that there could be a road. So what that means to us in the neighborhood is that's a cul-de-sac area, and then that road ends off a short cul-de-sac. So it's a very quiet neighborhood, and this may change that, and there may be a lot of concern for others in the neighborhood related to that. Again, I only came because my morning opened up and I was curious about what was going on here. Honestly, I had no idea that this could potentially change the neighborhood to greatly increase traffic and disturb the Heather Green neighborhood for what it is now. I don't even know if that's just the reason I wanted to come up here and state my concern, because you may have got other concerns had those individuals known that this was not just a simple variance, that there could be significant traffic coming in and out of the neighborhood as a result of this decision.
Let me ask your concern is dividing a 10-acre tract into two 5-acre tracts. I just apologize. I understand you say that it could potentially impact the other surrounding neighbors, but how does dividing this into two 5-acre tracts, how does that do that? I'm trying to understand the concern.
For what comes next?
Okay. All right. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you. Okay. Rebuttal. Here's an opportunity for rebuttal of opposition. Nothing. Okay. All right. Anybody else wishing to speak in opposition? Okay. And I apologize. Was it Scott? I apologize. So this is a time for rebuttal. I assume you have nothing more to say? If you do, I need you to come forward. Things can get recorded in the podium here, so for the lectern.
Yeah, my concern was just to speak on really behalf of my neighbors, that had they known, if there was more descriptive in the letter as to what was going on here, not just a variance. The variance seems like a very small thing. When I got here, it seemed like a much larger, potentially a much larger and more concern for more of my neighbors in Heather Green Boulevard area. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question. So your lot sizes right now in your neighborhood, how large are the lots there?
I'm going to say it's roughly 3/4 of an acre, maybe.
So your concern is that these 5-acre lots would turn into 5 1-acre lots or 6 3/4 acre lots?
Be subdivided, and then a whole nother neighborhood comes in off one small little road that I'm sure everyone in the neighborhood did not make a decision to build there based upon another potential small neighborhood blowing up next to it.
Thank you. Now I understand.
All right. Board members, questions for anybody else? All right. If not, close the floor, open it up for general discussion.
If it were turned into a subdivision situation with the combining of tracks 4 and 1, it's my understanding, unless I'm incorrect, that there's road frontage on Cedar Point Road for that, correct?
Road frontage on Cedar Point Road, and if anyone in the future wanted to do anything where there would be more then 3 parcels gaining access off of the shared driveway, it would immediately tip it into a much higher level review process of a major subdivision.
Okay, so to speak to that concern, if that ever was divided up into a major subdivision, the access wouldn't be involving that road coming off that there seems to be concerned about. There's road frontage on Cedar Point Road.
There is road frontage on Cedar Point Road, and any proposals to do anything, again, would require a major subdivision application. And I don't know if this helps the board out or not, with the division of the original 47 acres in the past, there are presently 2 10-acre tracts there that have access, well, actually 3. There's 3 tracts right now that have access to the shared driveway. This 10-acre parcel here at 4710, tract 4 here, and then this 10-acre tract here that's at the substreet of Deepwoods Place. What the applicants are proposing are to subtract this from that access and combine it with tract 1, which has the frontage on Cedar Point Road, and create 2 5-acre parcels here, ending up in a net exchange of 0. There are currently 3 tracts that have access off of the shared driveway, and if you all approve the variances, there would still be 3 tracts having access off of the driveway.
Jim?
Yeah, and you may need to call the Bob Vincent, the surveyor, back up here, but if you look at this plat, essentially they would not be able to create another road because the property line is in the middle of that 60-foot access, 30 feet on each side. You have to have 60 feet for a public roadway. So they're essentially, by doing it this way, and I'm going to make sure that Bobby's shaking his head, but you can call him up here because I'm not the surveyor. There will not be additional development of any of these lots. And there will not be access to address the adjoiner's concern, anything other than 2 more houses built back there on those, 1 on each of the 5 acres. But like Brian said, since this is consolidated, they would have to get access off of Cedar Point Road. So it's actually creating a buffer. Major lots.
Thanks. All right, any other questions? Or discussion points? If not, I'm ready for a motion.
To approve OC 23-012 for a road frontage variance for the tract located at 4707 Deepwoods Place, LaGrange. The variance will not adversely affect the public health, safety, or welfare and will not alter the essential character of the general vicinity, will not cause a hazard or nuisance to the public, and will not allow an unreasonable circumvention of the requirements of the zoning regulation because it doesn't impact the surrounding properties with any significance. Potential conditions of approval. The recorded access easement shall only provide access to the existing properties located at 4710 Deepwoods Place. The proposed tract 2 and the proposed tract 3 in conformance with the requirements that no more than 3 parcels may take access from a shared driveway. The proposed tract 4 would not have access to the recorded access easement and will be considered consolidated with the existing tract 1. A minor subdivision survey plat shall be submitted and indicating the proposed tract 4 does not have access to the recorded access easement to prevent more than 3 parcels having access from a shared driveway. The variance shall only apply to the application considered at the March 16th, 2023 Oldham County Board of Adjustments public hearing.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
A second.
Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? It's been approved. Are we okay to plow forward? Does anybody need a break? Let's go. I agree. Go.
Gretchen, you want to read the next one?
OC 23-013, an application has been filed requesting a location variance for a proposed accessory structure, a pool house located at 10811 Sun Ridge Road, Goshen.
Ryan Fisher, Oldham County Planning and Development Senior Planner. So we have a location variance before you for a proposed detached accessory structure, a pool house, on the property located at 10811 Sun Ridge Road in Goshen. Here's our site information. It is a CO1 conservation zoning area. Its land use is residential and it sits on 2 acres of property. Site history, we have no previous site history. Adjoining property owner notices were mailed on the 6th of March. Public notice appeared in the Oldham Era on the 9th. Here's your property in question. This is in Old Taylor Place.
Gentlemen, hang on, right? Gentlemen in the back. I can get you all to talk amongst yourself, that's fine. Okay, very good. Carry on.
The orange circle there, which it looks yellow, that is the proposed location of the pool house. Here's your zoning area, your zoning map showing it's in a CO1 zoning area. So the applicant is requesting a location variance to allow a 240 square foot detached accessory structure to be placed in front of the primary structure and the front yard property line. So this case is fairly similar to the one you all saw last month on Constantine Drive, where we had the detached garage just barely in front of the house. Very similar to that one. So this proposed accessory structure meets the standards of section 250-030 for accessory uses and structures, with the exception of that item E, which is no accessory use or structure shall be located in between the principal building and the front property line. So this is what the building looks like. So here is the property from our GIS mapping software showing the location of the primary dwelling and the pool. And so when the applicant came in originally, he came in with a building permit. Our permit clerk was like, I think this is in front of the house. That's how kind of this whole process got started. So what we really did on this was took a line from the very front of the primary dwelling across the front, and it came to about the concrete pool decking around the pool. The pool house is going right here. And so that's where we were like, you need to go in and get a location variance. And so that's why we are here today. So the applicant did have a difficulty in the delivering of the pool house. So it is actually on the property right now in the place where it will go. And so, which isn't great, but it also helps with pictures to show you all where this is actually going to be located. So here's a picture from the yard showing the pool house next to the pool. Here is one from the front yard. And so the applicant's justification states the placement of the structure is desired because of its proximity to the pool. It's going to be storing pool equipment, things of that nature. The topography of the lot doesn't allow it to be placed anywhere else, and the pool house will be obscured by trees. So in my photos when I was out there, here's one from the street. And so the pool house, if you look really hard behind those trees, is back there. I took another one from the street. Once again, it's right here, but you've got to look fairly hard. This was about the only one, and this is right when I got in front of the pool, that it was fairly noticeable from the street. So once again, that placement of the structure is desired, distance of the road, and obscured by trees. So the applicant's requesting that variance to allow the placement of the accessory structure in front of the primary structure. Conditions of approval, the variance shall only apply to the application considered here at this March 16th, 2023 Oldham County Board of Adjustments hearing, and there shall be no living space in the accessory structure and pool house. With that being said, that's all I've got.
Go back several slides. Keep going. All right. I'm trying to get a picture, and this may be the only one, to show me that it can't be located due to topography or any other reason. It can't be located within our regulations.
the applicant can probably justify this a little bit better than me. In talking with the applicant, they talked about the location of their septic lines and the topography of one of these sides. Now, she may be able to answer that a little bit more than me, but that was the two reasons why it couldn't be on either of these sides.
Leave that picture up, please. Okay. Any other questions for Ryan?
Why was it placed there without getting proper paperwork before now?
That they applied for a building permit. They were having trouble with the delivery was coming. And so, like I said, he came in to pull the permit not knowing that any of this process had to take place. When the permit clerk found out, she directed him to me, which is then, of course, you need to apply by a certain date. You can be on the hearing. And so it was delivered in that time period. And the applicant is under full knowledge that obviously if it gets denied today, that obviously will need to be moved. He's well aware of that. So.
Thank you, Ryan. We can have the applicant come forward. And state your name and address and be sworn in.
I'm Amy Everett. My address is 10811 Sunridge Road, Goshen, Kentucky, 40026.
Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the intent for the shed is to help house our pool equipment. We typically have deck chairs and things like that out there, and ends up going into our garage every year, which is not ideal. And then also to house like the electrical pool cleaning equipment and other equipment that we have, just all the yard accessories that come with the space that we have for our property. In response to why the topography doesn't work, so as you see this first fence line in the picture, that is between our home and the pool, so that it would clearly not be ideal. That's our walkway from our home to our pool, and it also slants downward. If you look to the other side, I mean, there's trees and a tree line, and the tree line is directly behind, and I don't know if you can tell, but the greenery goes up. I'm not sure how high the berm is. There's a huge berm that goes, like we can't, when we're in the pool, we can't even hardly see our neighbor's home because the berm comes up probably to my hip. So, and then there's the tree line with all the pines.
What's the purpose of the berm?
It was there when we moved here, when we moved into the home. And honestly, it just, the whole, as you look at the top view, it just kind of, there's a whole privacy area around the pool. And all of that landscaping was there when we moved in on the property. So the berm was already there.
You could. It's not like a septic system or something like that.
No, it's not on that side of the property. It's just all of the berm and the tree line. And we don't like to take down trees if we don't have to. We usually only take a tree down if there's disease or it's dead.
Any other questions? To me, I mean, it certainly looks like it can be placed within the regulations. I see, if I'm looking at that, let's see, if I'm looking on the street, looking at the pool, the back right-hand side looks like it could accommodate it without taking trees down. Directly behind the pool, it looks like there might be concrete sidewalk. Why can I not place?
Oh, I'm sorry, say again.
Why can you not place the structure somewhere else and still meet regulations?
Honestly, essentially is just the way that it lays out on as you face the pool. I'm sorry, you said the right side?
Yeah, I mean, as an example, but to be honest, it looks like you can place it anywhere on the back side of the pool and it would fall within our regulation.
So yeah, I'm seeing at the top of the red, you look at the red arrow and the top of that top triangle right up there.
I keep forgetting who presents these things. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, use your mouse.
There, yes.
That's where the septic line
Oh, the septic is there. Okay.
There we go. That's a good shot.
Yes.
All right, About Ryan, move the mouse to the top right-hand side. Yeah, right in there. Nope, go. Yep, right. Nope, in between the two trees. I'm gonna bring a red dot pointer next to. Even right there. How about right there?
The trees.
Oh, that's a tree.
Go to the right of that big tree. Yeah, right there. Right there.
The building itself won't fit there.
That's where that berm is. Is that?
That's the side over there is where the berm is. It runs along that side of the property and goes around. And then there's actually two trees right there. All of the green on that corner, those are two trees. And it's hard to see over here. Like, come to this corner right here. That's a tree. It just doesn't have leaves on it right now.
I see it.
So
Yeah.
there's two trees right there on either side of that. And that's just like a few feet wide pathway to our pool equipment, like the pumps. But yeah, it starts right here and runs all the way down here, and then there's a tree line right there with it.
Probably the dirt when they dug the pool. That's probably where they put the dirt.
So what your testimony is, there's no other place around the pool that can accommodate this pool shed without significant monetary, digging and excavating and
or damage to the trees and
taking out trees. Your testimony is there's no other place to put it.
Yes.
Board members, anything else? Okay, thank you. Is everybody here? Did we get any phone calls, emails? Yeah, put it up there.
I did receive one email from an adjoining property owner on Saturday, March 11th. I'll put that up here now. And that would be the adjoining property owner that's closest to the pool here on the right. Yes.
All right. Is there anybody wishing to speak in favor of the application? Opposed to the application? All right. Board, questions for anybody?
The only question I have is for staff. I mean, are we setting a precedent by approving things like this, or is each one considered individually?
Correct. Each one is a separate consideration, and it's based on evidence that you hear. In this case, it was topography, the need for removal of trees, screening that's already in existence, a berm that's already there, septic field. So.
Okay. Anything else? All right, I'll close the floor, open it up for general discussion. Anything to discuss? I'm ready for a motion.
Right. Motion to approve OC 23-013 for a location variance for a proposed accessory structure, pool house located at 10811 Sunridge Road, Goshen. The application will not adversely affect the public health, safety, or welfare, and will not alter the essential character of the general vicinity, will not cause a hazard or nuisance to the public, and will not allow an unreasonable circumvention of the requirements of the zoning regulation because the denial of placement, the denial of the application will cause an undue burden due to the septic fields and topography inhibiting placement of the pool house anywhere else on the property, and there are no objections from the adjacent property owners. Potential conditions of approval. The variance shall only apply to the application considered at the March 16th, 2023 Oldham County Board of Adjustments public hearing. There shall be no living space in the accessory structure pool house.
Do I have a second? Discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? It's been approved. And Gretchen, you want to read the last one?
OC 23-014, an application has been filed requesting a front yard setback variance for an existing parking area, an existing building, and proposed buildings on a property located at 2221 North Highway 53, LaGrange.
Vogel, Assistant Director. The request in front of the board today is for front and side yard variances to allow the construction establishment of a recreational vehicle storage facility. There are 4 variances being requested, and we'll get into that detail further on in the presentation here. 3 of them are for existing buildings or features that are on the property already, and then the 4th one is for the proposed building. The proposed building is actually for covered recreational vehicle storage. So as we get into the plan here that the applicants have submitted, you need to keep in mind that it's, I'll use the term carport, and if that's, I think that's accurate, but if it's not, the applicants can speak to that. It's basically a big carport for recreational vehicles. Proper notification was given for today's hearing in terms of our website, adjoining property owners, and the Oldham Mirror newspaper. It's an aerial photograph of the general vicinity off of Highway 53. It's located on the right-hand side of 53 as you travel north towards 42 from downtown LaGrange, past Waterworks Road, which is right here. And the site right now has like an auto repair shop and office on it. It's been there, the building and parking lot have been there for a long time, and we're going to get into that with a little bit of the site history. And the subject site is basically this polygon here where it's been cleared out from the trees and then bordered by 53 on the western side. A lot of history with this. 4 of the things that have been before the board dating back to 1978. 4 of the hearings were for conditional uses for a mobile home that was formerly on the property. It's no longer on the property. So I'm going to zip through those just kind of quick here. In September 78, September of 1980, September of 1982, and then October of 92, conditional uses were granted with conditions in regards to a mobile home that used to be located on the property, that originally was used for the owner of the property, and then the final one, it was being used for security purposes. And the board put conditions on those, either with the time period or how it was being used. In October 1987, the board did grant some variances for an office addition onto the existing building that is there. Because the existing building was pre-existing, non-conforming building, it didn't meet the setback requirements, but had been constructed prior to the adoption of the zoning ordinance, they were required to get setback variances. That building is actually in front of you guys today. In October of 87, they made application to have an existing building be 50 feet from the front property line. And as you'll see with the applicant's presentation, they're saying they're going to be 47 feet. I think the discrepancy is 30 years of improved accuracy and tools in surveying, and that's the explanation for that. But we had them go ahead and come before you all to get an additional variance for that front yard setback, even though there's been one granted in the past. And then the last thing is the applicants did appear before the Oldham County Technical Review Committee this past December, where the Technical Review Committee does what its name is. They provide technical comment. They don't approve or deny something, and they did receive technical comment that if you all grant the requested variances, the county engineer's office and our office and other agencies would follow up on. This is the proposed site. The highlighted red actually should also include this small triangular section right here with the existing building here, and then there's also an existing larger warehouse or pole barn type building in the back. The zoning on the property is light industrial. It does have some commercial to the south of it, and then surrounded by different types of residential on all other sides. These are the variances that they are requesting, and I'm going to flip back and forth a little bit with their plot plan to go through those. So the existing parking lot, it basically is on the property line right now, has existed that way for a very long time. So on their plot plan that I've got in front of you all, what's highlighted in pink is the 35-foot setback requirement for parking, whether it's existing parking or new proposed parking. Any of their proposed parking in the future, which is all located behind this retaining wall here, will satisfy that 35-foot parking lot setback standard, where they're asking you all for variances to allow the existing parking that's right here to continue to exist where it has existed. The existing building is requesting a variance to be 47 feet from the front property line, where in 1987 it had been identified with a 50-foot setback. And then also the existing building would be 32 feet from the side property line. So highlighted in blue are all the building setback line requirements. So the one that we're talking about right now with existing buildings would be this existing building, which would be 47 feet from the is 47 feet from the front property line. And then right here, this front corner of the building is 32 feet from the property line and has existed so since sometime in the 1970s. The one variance that they're, do you want me to slow up?
Keep going, but we're going to have to go back and look at all these again. So keep going.
The one variance for the proposed building on the setback is the corner of the recreational vehicle storage building that's closest to Highway 53, is 56 feet from the front property line, requiring a variance of 44 feet. And then in summary, they're asking for the front and side yard variances to allow the construction of the recreational vehicle storage business, requiring the variances on either existing parking lot, existing buildings, or the proposed new building. I know. The only way I could think to help convey this to you all was to get the colored markers out and start marking things to try to sort through this.
So are you done? Okay. This might be the best shot, but show me a picture of the building and the...
Like an aerial photograph?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, right there. Okay, so with the mouse, show me where the existing parking lot is. Okay, that's the existing parking lot. And we are asking for a 0 front yard setback because it abuts 53?
It abuts the right-of-way line for 53.
Line for
Yes,
53.
it does not abut the edge of pavement of Highway 53.
All right, so that's the parking lot. So they're asking for the 35-foot variance because it currently is there. And then the building, the existing building, it's currently 47 feet from the front yard setback. So is that the building, the white?
The white building is
47 feet in front of
the right-of-way line for 53.
and then it's also on the right-hand side. It's 32 feet from so they're asking for the 3-foot variance there. Okay, I'm good.
Right.
All right, and now we're talking about a new building. Where's the new building going?
Right here.
And they're asking for it to be 56 feet from the setback, which is a 44-foot relief. All right. Got it. Any other questions for Brian?
So I have a question for Brian or Jim. So the setback rules or regulations that we have right now, why are they designed the way they are? I mean, what are we thinking about here? Yeah.
In the industrial zoning, the 100-foot was a long time ago. And actually it was pre-COVID, so 3-ish years ago, we recommended through a study review committee and then the planning commission to the legislative bodies that we reduce in the industrial zoning the setback to 50 feet. Primarily because in industrial zoning, that's higher priced land, and we don't have a lot of industrially zoned property. The fiscal court would have approved it, but they knew that there was this process that we could go through. And so they relinquished it back and said, leave it 100, but they can come and apply for variances. So that's why you're here. 100 feet is a lot.
What about the zeros for the parking? That's the one that concerns me. I mean,
I'm not sure. You were here a long time ago too. I don't.
Yeah, when that parking was built in the 70s, and then also when they had their variance request in 1987, I wasn't here then. I was here in the early 90s, and do distinctly remember that hearing in October '92, which is irrelevant on the mobile home because it was a controversial hearing. To get back to your question, because I got off point, in the 80s and then also the 90s in our zoning ordinance, we did not have a setback requirements for parking. Parking could basically abut right up on the right-of-way line or the property line. There were no setback requirements. So that's something that has changed from then to today where we do have a setback requirement.
And was that 80s, 90s, early 90s? Is that what you said?
I was here for the entire decade of the 90s and can tell you that the zoning ordinance at that time did not have a parking lot setback requirement.
How far off of 53 or the road is the
the right of way. Yeah, the right of way. How long is that right away from the road?
I can't answer that question off the top of my head. I can grab a scale out here, but would prefer to defer to the applicant's engineer because they may have that answer in their pocket right now. And if not, we can put a scale to the site plan and see.
All right. Any other questions? Okay, thanks. And if we can bring the applicant forward.
Hats now. I'm not a resident now. I'm Phil Gambrell, owner Prism Engineering, 2309 Waterson Trail, Suite 200, Jeffersontown, Kentucky, 40299.
Swear him in again. Are you looking?
Okay.
Oh, okay.
How do I get to my presentation? Not all about it. We are here today for this application. The main portions of it are the variances that have been spoken of. If you can see this line here, this is the current right-of-way of 53. One of the things that has initiated this is in the past, the right-of-way of 53 was this line here, and it followed all the way along 53. In the past, the highway department came in and made a major improvement here at this culvert coming under the roadway and some other roadside improvements, which caused the taking of additional right-of-way in various spots along the front property line. That then, along with the 100-foot setback for the zoning, it took even more additional space on the property. So with one of the reasons for the difference in I believe the front setback that was granted in the past, in the distance-wise, is the fact of this extra taking here. I think that's why that distance got shortened some. So the front parking and this building, obviously they are existing facilities that have been there for years in operation. They have not caused a safety problem to anything in the area. So I want to kind of go through a little bit here. This is the site. You've got the office and the auto repair facility here. I've got some photographs that I'll show you here from looking in the different directions. If you'll, right where I'm pointing right there, if you can kind of tell, there's a sign there, and that's the sign for Aaron's Auto Body. The reason for pointing that out is this is looking north, going north on 53. So as reference, you can see the sign right there. So that I use that so that you can kind of see where you're at along the roadway. Again, and then this is looking south along Highway 53, and again, there's the sign so that it gives you a point of reference.
I hate stopping you in the middle of this, but am I also seeing the corner of the parking lot right there, right behind the sign?
Yes.
Okay, very good.
That's the existing parking lot, right? That's the front of it right there.
Okay, all right. Sorry about that. Go ahead.
It's fine. So here is a look from 53 into the site where this access point here is where the main access going into the storage facility will be. It's going to be, well, if I can get the mouse to work, here we go. It's going to be this direction a little bit, obviously to avoid the power pole, and there is this area right here. The height is plenty high enough for the RVs to get in and out. However, when you come further this direction, there's a whole lot of slack in the line and it dips down. So part of the project will be getting them to take a little bit of the slack out of the lines to make sure we have full clearance. And then here is the entrance into the existing facility. And as you can see, here is the front parking lot line. There is quite a bit of space between 53 and the parking lot. It's just due to the right-of-way changes in the past. That right-of-way line got all the way up to the edge of the parking. This is what the buildings proposed will look like. They're not carports. There's several open to the air facilities around the area. There are none that are fully enclosed and secured. These buildings will all be secured with doors on the front. They are being put together in 4-unit buildings so that they can, as I showed here, rise up and down as they go along the topography. The buildings are 57 feet long. They're 16 feet tall to the ridge line. Each one has a 12-foot by 14-foot door to allow access by the vehicle, and essentially they're 14 feet in width, each unit. Here is the rear view, and this is basically the view you will see from 53. The first set of buildings, all of the access into the buildings are interior. So you're not going to come down 53 and see a bunch of doors. You're going to see the back facade of the building. I can get here we go. Here's an in view of it. They're a little over 50 feet long, and it has a standard quarter 12 roof line. It's with these standard engineered metal buildings. Here's a perspective showing kind of how the building looks. Here are the buildings placed on the site. Right now, here is, as you can see, the existing facility and building. These buildings, the closest spot which we're requesting the variance for is at this corner right here. And that is, I believe it was 56 feet, which is a little bit more than the proposed 50-foot change that came through fiscal court in the past. There's 2 reasons why the buildings then keep getting further and further away from the property line. One is it was convenient to line everything up with the back property line as far as geometrics go. But 2, the main reason is right here is the creek. And we want to stay as far away from the creek as possible. Plus, it allowed us to get land over on this area here to put in 2 large detention basins that will handle the stormwater runoff once the facilities are built. We've got a look kind of going north on 53 to show again how the buildings veer away from the roadway. And here's one going south on 53 to show again how we've got the larger area here, and we're only tight up at this spot, which is actually behind the front of the existing building. This is a better view of what it'll look like. My little sketch that I put together was good, but it didn't depict it accurately. And then this is to show that, yes, they're tight, but even the big boys can get in and out of them. And I'm glad to answer any questions you may have. Some of the history and how the site, let me get back down here to this one because it shows it the best, the site is laid out.
How long the building that's in question, the proposed building that's requiring the variance, how long is that?
It will be 100, it's 57 times 2, so that's 114 feet.
Okay.
The entrance will come in here, come up. This will all be grassed area in front. All of the interior area, it'll be paved up to the front of the buildings here. All of the interior then, except in the middle of each aisle, is a concrete, lack of better terms, concrete ditch, but it's not like a ditch. It's just an inverted crown to take the water away. The rest of the area, in order to stay in compliant with the dust requirements, will be millings, recycled asphalt millings. They pack down very good, oh, good English, very well, and they don't produce the dust that a gravel area will produce.
You're not asking for, I know this is just a rendering, but like the very back building is not asking for relief on the side yard, or even the one closer, or?
Well, it's the property, it's kind of, with this angle, it's a little deceptive.
Okay.
There's plenty of room behind the buildings. We have a bypass ditch in the back. All of the drainage from the site, picture north, is coming to this site and runs across this site. So we're picking it up in a separate ditch and running it around to the creek so that we don't have to try and contain it within our detention basins. And then the perimeter, the left perimeter and the rear perimeter are very heavily, going to be heavily landscaped and treed because of, we have an industrial zoned property that abuts a residential zone, and the landscape requirements for that condition are very strict.
Where's the residential zone?
Behind it, to the left side, to the right side, as you're looking at this picture, is a zone commercial. So we don't need that extensive landscaping there.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? I have a question for Jim. If it's so my concern is really with the parking lot going to a zero setback along 53, and if so, my question is if 53 in the next 50 years or whatever becomes a 4-lane road with a shoulder on it, what happens?
Well, and I don't know if you have any information about the current right-of-way width right in front.
Not in. I can go back and try and zoom in and get a.
If you can, but typically they buy property off either side with any improvements, and there are currently no plans whatsoever to widen Kentucky 53. As we look at growth, going out towards Westport is not a high growth area, so maybe one day in the way distant future it may happen, but at this point there aren't any plans. And again, if they did, I believe, if I were to make a prediction, that they would only be putting in turn lanes, so it wouldn't be widened to 4 lanes, it would be a 1 lane, and they would take, that's typically I think an 11 or 12-foot turn lane. So they'd take 6 feet off each side of the roadway. So
My hot buttons is shoulders. I mean, do you think they'll ever change the Kentucky standards to have shoulders on the roads?
Maybe, but in this location, it's pretty straight. And if you ever, and I'm sure you have, from here, once you get out that way, I mean, there's a stretch of 53 that's about the straightest stretch of road I've ever seen in Kentucky. Rolling, but no, there isn't any plan. They would do if they did, they would do shoulders in the existing right of way.
Okay, thank you.
Because those are only usually a couple feet wide, not lanes wide. So if they ever did make shoulder improvements, it would be in the existing right of way.
Okay, let me go back to here. Okay. This original property line before the extra takings, this is 60 feet from the center line of 53. So that means 53 in this area has a standard 120-foot right-of-way.
That's a lot.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's,
I mean, as an engineer, that to have 60 foot, even when you said on one side, I was saying, well, that's pretty typical for roadways complete. But if it's 120, I don't think they'll ever buy right.
Thank you. That's helpful.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you. Letters, support, opposition?
We've not received any.
Board members, questions for anybody?
All right, I'll close the floor, open it up for discussion. If no discussion, I'm ready for a motion.
So, is this one motion or two for
good.
each variance? It's not showing on here.
All of them separately.
Okay, that's what I'm asking.
We can make it clean. We'll do 4 motions.
Okay, yeah. Four variants.
So we're doing it all as one.
No, 4 different ones.
We are doing it. 4 different motions. Yeah, I'm trying to get myself together here and be prepared. Thank you. Well,
Charles, you want to make it? You want to make it?
well, and I'm sorry, I'm trying to find the exact language I'm a mess here today. There's a lot. I'm here. So I think the first thing we're going to address is the original building's front and side variances of the existing parking structure and, parking lot and existing structure. So motion to approve OC docket 23014 for a front and side yard variance for the parking and existing structure at 2221 North Highway 53 LaGrange. Because the alignment of the proposed structures the existence of those structures have been there for a long time and have not impacted the community in a negative way, and making changes to that would be an unreasonable demand on the property owner. And I'm looking for a thank you. Oh. Move to approve the variances because it will not adversely affect the public health, safety, or welfare, and will not alter the essential structure of the general vicinity, and will not cause a hazard or nuisance to the public, and will not allow an unreasonable circumvention of the requirements of the zoning regulations. For the reasons I just explained, the variance shall only apply to the application considered at the March 16th, 2023 Oldham County Board of Adjustments public hearing. So is that
All right.
First motion?
It's the first motion. And did I understand that you did the parking variance as well as the existing building? You did both of those.
Yes.
Okay. All right. We have the motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Charles. Discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Okay, that one's been approved, and we'll need one more for the proposed building.
The new buildings that are being proposed. Motion to approve, docket OC 23014 for the building, the front and side yard setbacks for proposed buildings to be used as RV storage at 2221 North Highway 53 LaGrange. The variance will not adversely affect public health, safety, or welfare, and will not alter the essential character of the general vicinity, and will not cause a hazard or nuisance, and will now not allow for an unreasonable circumvention of the requirements of the zoning, because the alignments of the proposed structures are in line with existing buildings, and the character and objective of the potential impact on the community and the surroundings are appropriate. Potential conditions of approval. The variance shall only apply to the application considered at the March 16th, 2023 Oldham County Board of Adjustments public hearing.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? It's all been approved.
Good day.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, minutes. Everybody read minutes? Do we have any changes to the minutes for February? Yeah, thank you. If not, can I get a motion to approve the minutes?
Make the motion that we approve the minutes with any necessary correction.
Great, thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? It's been approved. Any other business? You are itching to get up. Go ahead. All right, I need a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Meeting adjourned.
I mean, the first two, though, where they